About the mall probably heard about this very quickly. We are looking at the parking lot right now. There don't look to be many cars there. It did not look to be super busy, but of course this is certainly a concern at that mall there in Burlington, as again we are hearing from the State Patrol that this is an active shooter situation, so they do not know where that suspect is at this point. They're just telling people to stay away from that area just off of I-5 in Burlington. Anyone who is there to follow the road closures. They're trying to get a handle on the situation to feed us information right now as well.
There are reports that the shooting took place in the Macy's store at the mall. Again, unconfirmed at this time, and unconfirmed are the reports of any injuries or how many might have been wounded in this shooting attack. Once again, there is a description of the suspect or a suspect, a Hispanic male wearing gray, last seen walking toward Interstate 5 from the Burlington Mall. You can see this video here that was shot and sent back to us just as we said in the last few moments here into the newsroom. Again, a Friday night, generally a very busy night out for young people, lots of high school football action in that area as well as all around the Puget Sound region. There's the Cascade Mall right next to Interstate 5. Again, this some distance out of downtown Seattle, but certainly well within the Puget Sound region. And again, word tonight of an active shooter in that area. That's
right. And we are not hearing, again, very much about the suspect that they're looking for right now, except that he was wearing gray at the time, a Hispanic male. We're not hearing anything else about an age, about possible motive, about whether anything was said before this man opened fire. We are still trying to find out whether it looks like he actually targeted specific people in that mall or just opened fire. Right now, this is all that we're getting from the scene, which is clearly a chaotic scene as first responders were getting there to the Cascade Mall just off of I-5 in Burlington and trying to get a handle on what is going on. We're also reaching out to experts in active shooter situations who may be able to give us more insight into how they are treating this situation. Unfortunately, this is not a new situation in our community or anywhere else. We have talked several times, even recently, about incidents like this, including just most recently in Mukilteo this summer. Perhaps a different situation, Steve, but so similar, unfortunately, in many ways.
We hope it's going to end up not being a lethal situation, but again, we have no confirmation at this point. As you see, we're continuing to run this video as we have just brought it into the newsroom, and as we say in this business, turned it around. You look in the parking lot, you can see there are a fair number of spaces in the parking lot, which means the mall, which has been a mall there since 1990, has a TJ Maxx store, a J.C. Penney store, 2 Macy's stores there. And again, from the latest indications we have, authorities are on the scene of the mall. They have locked down certain parts of the mall, and they are telling everyone, please stay away. Do not come to the Cascade Mall in Burlington.
And Steve, we're getting word right now that Jesus Villahermosa is able to join us on the phone. He is an expert in these active shooter situations. He was previously on the Pierce County SWAT team. Unfortunately, he knows exactly what these situations are like. Jesus, thank you for joining us right now as we continue our breaking news coverage of the shooting at the Cascade Mall in Burlington. Clearly very early. Can you give us some insight into what would be the first concerns and the first actions of the first responders who show up at that mall?
Sure. The first concern, of course, is we've got to find the shooter. And that's going to be critical because it sounds like they're locking down the mall, which means some of the stores probably have gone into lockdown. They're securing themselves, their employees, as well as any visitors to the mall. But this is a mall, and it's going to take a lot of law enforcement, non-tactical as well as tactical, to keep that mall. And conversely, you've got to understand, my understanding is that someone said that they're looking for a Hispanic male in gray clothing that was seen walking away. So if that's the case, you've also got a perimeter that's trying to be set as well. That's going to involve, an incident command post with trying to coordinate all of the responding agencies, because this is up north. There's going to be multiple agencies involved in this type of situation. So the first priority is find the shooter. And then, of course, in that process, there's new tactics now where before tactical teams used to bypass the injured, but now this state particular has been one of the leading states in the country that now practices actually taking fire departments and personnel that are trained in medical aid, of course, that's what they do, and they actually go in with some of the tactical teams as they're given a secure area to start treating the wounded. So even that has changed in the active shooter response over the last few years.
Jesus, if I remember the right order here, we have talked about these situations before. I believe it's run, hide, and then fight. Put us inside that mall. If an active shooter walks in, you're standing in the store, what would we likely have seen, and what would we do in that situation?
Well, you know, Steve, it's the people talk about run, hide, fight. The challenge is that as soon as he opens fire, remember that there's going to be an initial victim. There has to be, because no one's going to know he's going to do it until the weapons are discharged. But once the weapon is discharged, the big challenge really is that a lot of people don't run. They actually freeze. They drop and cover. They duck and cover on the ground in hopes that they think that the person will bypass them. But you've got to remember that the only goal of an active shooter is to kill. And so they're not going to bypass you. So if you're near the shooter, we've talked about this with yourself and Monique as well. If you're near the shooter, you want to run. And you don't want to just run a little ways. You want to keep running. I know that the Germany incident, the woman that was next to the shooter ran, but she ran across the street to the mall. And when the shooter got done shooting into McDonald's, he then walked into the mall and opened fire, and she was still in that mall. So I would tell anybody that's even, still has that opportunity that's there, that has already ran, you want to keep going. Go to law enforcement that's out there. The people that are in lockdown, you're absolutely in a good position to be in lockdown because no shooter to date has breached a locked door. So that's critical to know. So if you don't see the shooter and you're locked down, stay there. If you've ran, you want to keep running. You don't want to turn on your cell phone and go back, which unfortunately a lot of people are doing, and it has cost them their lives in some cases where they've tried to go back and get a glimpse of the shooter.
Now, Jesus, I'm sorry, clearly we are dealing with a chaotic situation out there. As you mentioned, as people are responding to this, they face the challenge of securing the situation well enough that they can go in and treat the people who may be wounded. Hopefully that is happening right now. As we remember from the Marysville-Pilchuck High School situation, we also saw SWAT teams showing up, and they had to clear out that entire school room by room. I imagine something similar to that will be happening in the mall right now, especially because we're just hearing of this one suspect, but they have to be worried that perhaps there's somebody else out there in addition to this man that a witness said was walking away from the mall and toward I-5.
Yeah, don't forget that in 2011 or 2005 November, we had the Tacoma Mall shooting. So for me, this brings back a lot of memories because we had 3 different SWAT teams at that shooting in trying to respond to the attack that was occurring at that time. So you're right. There's definitely, we're trying to get aid to people that we can get aid to. But I will tell you that even since the 2005 shooting, that has now been advanced by tactical teams and fire departments. We don't wait as long anymore. They're actually escorted in what's called a hot zone or a warm zone. But they're escorted and protected by a group of law enforcement, an active shooter response team that gives them exclusive protection to make sure they can treat those people, even if the area is not completely secure. So again, there's a lot of dynamics going on here. And remember that, yes, the priority is let's get the shooter because we don't know if the shooter's maybe moved on. And if he has moved on, is he going to start shooting somewhere else like what happened in, I forgot what state it was, where he opened fire on the recruiting station and then went to a different location and opened fire there again. So, this is the type of situation that everyone trains for in law enforcement and fire departments. And I can tell you the biggest thing is the public, please stay away from this area, stay away from the streets that lead to this area. This is where we really need you to just stay at home and keep those thoroughfares open so that our ambulances with those injured adults or kids, that they can get to where they need to get the medical aid.
All right, Jesus Villahermosa, thank you so much. Please stand by because I know we're going to need your expertise throughout the course of the evening. We do want to let you know here in just about less than 30 seconds, we're going to go back to CBS for regular programming tonight. We will be staying on Facebook Live to continue to give you the very, very latest in this active shooter situation at the Cascade Mall in Burlington. That's
right. We are hearing that this happened in the Macy's. We're trying to get that confirmed, but that the shooter was walking away toward I-5, which is right next to it. We'll see you over on Facebook Live and tonight at 11 o'clock.
This is Cairo 7 Breaking News.
And we want to bring you into Facebook Live as well as the live stream at Cairo 7 on all digital platforms. I'm Steve Rabel along with Monique Ming-Lavin. We are following breaking news in Skagit County, an active shooter situation at the Cascade Mall in Burlington. We are continuing to work to bring you the very latest information. What we do know is someone opened fire inside the Macy's store at the Cascade Mall. As of this point, and we have seen various reports of injuries, we have not had a confirmation yet from either Washington State Patrol or Burlington authorities.
Very, very limited information at this point. What we do know is that witnesses said that they saw this suspect, who is only described as a Hispanic male wearing gray, leaving the Cascade Mall and heading toward I-5. Now, we're looking at a map here just in front of me, not on your screen, but in front of me, of the Cascade Mall. And the Macy's is the westernmost store in that mall, which is right next to the main street there and then I-5. So at this point, it has now been probably a half an hour since this person was seen walking away.
We're just getting information now from our Gary Horker, who is heading to the scene and very well could be by now on the scene, as we are sending news crews there post haste. But Gary sends us this information that active shooter teams are in fact sweeping the Macy's now. While all the Cascade Mall stores are locked down, they are concentrating, Gary says, on the men's department. And at this point, again, he has not gotten any confirmation as to number of victims or any kinds of severities of injuries. But our Gary Horker, as we said, on the scene or will be there very, very shortly with the latest information.
And Gary will certainly be looking into and trying to figure out whether they know anything very quickly about whether the suspect seemed to be targeting anyone in particular or just opened fire. Again, he supposedly opened fire in the Macy's at the Cascade Mall and then left fairly soon after. We're hearing from witnesses. We are also hearing from that area that tonight's Lakewood at Burlington Edison football game has been temporarily suspended because of this situation at the Cascade Mall. Again, active shooter situation around that mall that is off of I-5 there.
There are also reports now coming in from State Patrol and from the police and sheriff's office there in the Burlington area that there are road closures in and around the Cascade Mall. As Jesus told us just a couple of moments ago, you have one perimeter now, probably several perimeters around the men's department, around the store itself, around the mall itself, and now around the exterior areas of the mall and the streets surrounding. If we can bring Jesus back in, give us a sense, Jesus, for what we would be seeing out of police, out of State Patrol. What would they be doing right now as far as setting a perimeter and looking for this suspected shooter?
Well, you know, the tough part with this, Steve, is that you've got a very vague description here. You know, we're not just going to go by Hispanic male. I mean, at this point, male is probably the one thing. Great clothing sounds like it's going to be accurate. Those are the things we're going to be looking for, but they are going to set, like you said, the inner perimeter and then the outer perimeter. The chances are pretty high that there's a bird in the air, a helicopter in the air, where they may be using infrared as well, because, of course, you know, they may be bringing in K9 as well to start a track if they can get
Jesus,
one.
I beg your pardon. Let me interrupt for just a moment because this is suddenly gotten exponentially worse than we could have believed it would have.
Certainly, the State Patrol has just confirmed that there are indeed 4 people killed in this situation at the Cascade Mall, 4 dead in this still active shooter situation in Burlington in Skagit County. We just got word of that. We thought that might be coming, but unfortunately, it just has. So we know that at this point, Jesus. We also know that witnesses apparently saw this person leaving. Does that information give you any insight, you think, into how this went down?
You know, I wish I could tell you that I'm surprised. You've got to remember that one of the things we're concerned about and have been concerned about, in fact, we've talked about it with yourself and Steve in the past, is the mall attacks that have been occurring throughout the country and that we've been predicting are going to continue to occur through the holiday season, specifically through, just because of whether this is going to be related to some type of edict or mandate from ISIS. Again, those are all things we have yet to discover. But you have to remember that this is not unusual now, and so the numbers being at 4 at this point, my guess is that we're going to have a number of injuries as well that may further lead to fatalities later. But it's disheartening. It's sad to hear. It just keeps happening, and so there's going to be a lockdown, if you will, of that community. Don't forget that when Boston had the bomber in Boston, the recent attacks in New York, New Jersey, they locked down a suburb of Boston that was 1 million people. And thank God that we had patriotic Americans that did what the police asked them to do, because then it made it more obvious where the bad guy was going to be. And so I would ask again the listeners, please, whatever law enforcement is asking you to do, please don't go into that looky-loo mode where you're, stepping outside and you're driving a car around thinking you're going to find the suspect. Please, the less traffic there is, the less people, the more we can focus on what it is that we're trying to do, because we also don't know if this person has left by vehicle. We don't even know, honestly, if they've left. They may still be in the mall. We don't have that information for sure.
And in fact, Jesus, as we get this very latest information that came down tonight, Sergeant Mark Francis from the Washington State Patrol sending out this, again, the 4 confirmed deceased in the mall. And then he said, shooter, parentheses, shooters, left the scene before police arrived. So there is the possibility that there may be, where there is no indication, but at this point they left the door open that there could be possibly more than a single shooter. But right now the police are clearing the mall as we speak, moving throughout the Cascade Mall in Burlington, after we have now confirmed that 4 are dead in a shooting there on this Friday night, a Friday night when most people are going to football games, and even there in Burlington. Speaking
of that football game, we mentioned just a little while ago that the Lakewood at Burlington Edison football game had been suspended. We're now getting word that it's actually been evacuated. People have been told to leave the stadium. We're not sure exactly why that is at this point. Again, all they're telling us about the suspect was that he was wearing gray. So still a lot of information to be gleaned from this as we continue our breaking news coverage.
This is KIRO 7 Breaking News.
And this is KIRO 7 Breaking News, along with Monique Minglav, and I'm Steve Rabel. We are breaking into programming because of a terrible story that is taking place, and it is ongoing right now in Burlington at the Cascade Mall. If you are just joining us, at just before 7 o'clock this evening, according to police, a shooter, possibly shooters, walked into the Cascade Mall and opened fire. And Washington State Patrol, within the last 5 minutes, has confirmed that 4 people are now dead in this shooting. This, some of the very first video coming out of the Cascade Mall. Again, this is just a horrible situation on this Friday evening, and it is not anywhere near being concluded. And we are being told that stores are locked down, and people are being told, please steer clear of the Cascade Mall. Again, 4 dead. We don't know the number of shooters. Clearly, at least 1, possibly more, but witnesses are only giving information about 1 at this point, and just that he was wearing gray. KIRO 7's Gary Horker is on his way to the scene right now. He has already found out, though, that the Cascade Mall stores are in lockdown, that there are teams that are sweeping the Macy's there right now. They are particularly concentrating on the men's department. That is where they are at this point. As we take a look at this map of the mall, you can see the Macy's there on the westernmost part, just off of I-5 there, but quite a sizable mall, all enclosed, not an open-air mall, but an enclosed mall. And we were hearing of people taking cover in various stores. And take a look at that map, and if you look closely, you can see the ring road surrounding. It would be to the west, that's Cascade, looks like Cascade Mall Drive, as well as to the east, it would be South Burlington Boulevard. There are many roads now. We're getting word from Skagit County that Burlington Street Department is closing all road access. We continue live now on our live Facebook breaking news coverage here. Along with the digital platforms at Cairo 7 Television, we were just on with everybody as well on Cairo 7 TV. And as we have been saying, a number of roads closed off all around the Cascade Mall area, according to the Burlington Street Department.
We still have Jesus Villahermosa on the line with us right now, active shooter expert, also a former member of the Pierce County SWAT team. Thank you, Jesus. We were talking about how they are sweeping through the mall right now, especially concentrating on Macy's. They're trying to get people cleared to know that they are safe and released, but this is a big investigation scene. Clearly a lot still ahead, and there's a lot of information they're trying to get. So what happens for these people as they check them out? They make sure they're okay, but they want to keep them together to get as much information as they can. What is that scene going to be like?
Well, actually, it's not just about checking them out. They're gonna actually have everyone keep their hands clear. It's going to look like every other scene we've seen, where people are going to be coming out. They're going to be escorted by a law enforcement team. Those people in groups, as they're rescued, will be taken to a location, a staging area, where they will be. And by the way, they're going to have to be patted down. We don't know that the shooter has not hidden among those people, right? So they're going to have to be patted down. They're going to have to be cleared, which is emotional enough with everything else going on. But it's got to happen that way. Once they get them into the staging area, wherever that is going to be for law enforcement announced, they then are going to interview them because they have to know, what did you see? Every person now becomes critical in this investigation that possibly saw any component of this shooting. And so that's an extensive process, because now you're talking about bringing in dozens of investigators. I remember at Foss High School, we literally would release 10 students at a time when I was in Foss during that process, and we would release them to the detectives, who would then take all their information, their name, what they saw, and then they'd release them to another group, and then we'd give them 10 more. So it's going to be a very methodical process. Once they're exited from the mall, they've got to get food for them, water, coffee. They've got to notify family where they're going to be able to pick them up, because there's got to be a reunification point. So there's a lot of logistics that are about to start tonight that's going to take hours and hours to facilitate. So for family members, waiting, just stay in contact. Obviously, keep listening to what you're listening to. The State Patrol will release eventually, and so will the local jurisdiction. They'll release the information of where people can be picked up from the mall or from the staging area that they're going to set up a reunification point. But wait for that information before you start heading there.
Jesus, I don't know if you're in position to look at the television and look at the video, now look at a computer screen, since we are online with our live reporting here. But if you have seen the video that we have been showing, what we see is a police car with the lights flashing, and this is somewhat after the event, because a number of officers are in position surrounding the mall. What we don't see in this picture is a lot of people running away from the mall. And again, I don't know if you can see this or not, but we don't know if perhaps they're already out of the mall, or if, as you said, many of them found places to just lock themselves down inside the mall if they couldn't get out. But I'm just wondering your thoughts on that, what we see as we look at some of these initial pictures from the scene.
Well, that's not surprising, Steve, given the amount of time that we've got here. We've got to remember that the initial event of people fleeing from an active shooter is within the first few seconds, if not first minute. So the largest volume of people, if there were people running, are absolutely going to be running in that first initial 1 to 2 minutes. That number is going to dramatically reduce as law enforcement arrives, because now the active shooter has to make a decision, right? He has to decide, am I going to take on the cop? Am I going to flee? Am I going to hide? Am I going to hole up like what happened in Dallas? Am I going to become a barricaded subject? So those are all the things. That's why we have to be so methodical here. But I can tell you that, yes, you're right. Those that have left, and those that have remained are in lockdown. And that's why law enforcement is going to conduct a sweep of every room, every closet, every bathroom, anywhere that we can even believe that someone, don't forget in Columbine, people went into the ceiling to hide from the gunmen.
And Jesus,
so all those things are occurring.
We are hearing that the reach is even broader than that. As we were mentioning just a little while ago, the Burlington Edison football game has been temporarily suspended. And we were told also that people have been evacuated from their football stadium there. I was just looking this up on the internet. As the crow flies, it looks like the distance from the mall to the high school is maybe a mile, something like that.
Right.
So if they're taking those precautions, is it just because that's another area where a lot of people are gathered, or would they be working off of some sort of intelligence in order to do that?
I would tell you it's the first. is going to be the first, Monique, and that is going to be it's the proximity and the fact that it's a large gathering. Don't forget that, again, if we're going to go back to some of the ISIS threat, they're telling people to attack our gathering areas, our malls, right? Anywhere where there's a large group of people. So that is very smart. I believe it's a very prudent decision that they're making to do that. And again, imagine the volume of officers this is taking, because a mile away you have a different set of officers that are having to secure this perimeter, because we don't know what the shooter's intent is. We don't know if this was plan A and now I'm going to go to plan B. We don't know if there's multiple shooters yet. There's so much here that is still to be told. And let's also not forget that during the San Bernardino shooting, they had intelligence within minutes of arriving on scene that they couldn't share with the media. That's how they knew how to stake out the right house, right? They couldn't share that, because if they shared it, then the media would have gotten there before law enforcement could do their job. So there's numerous possibilities here, but I do believe it is very prudent for them to shut down that game, get people to get on the road and get safely home. And I would tell anyone listening to this broadcast, even by radio, if you're on the radio listening to this, do not stop to pick up any strangers. Get home. Get to your home. Just stay inside, but do not pick up anybody hitchhiking. If you see anybody that even looks close to maybe they move into the tree line as you drive by, you need to call that into law enforcement. Let's not forget that it was a caller that allowed us to catch the Fox High School shooter, because she reported suspicious activity in an alley. So, again, the citizens listening, there are eyes in our ears. If you see anything that doesn't look right, that may match the description of this shooter, please get that information. Call 911 immediately, and because, again, there's going to be hundreds of officers at this scene. That I can say right now, hundreds.
And in fact, Jesus, we're getting word from our Gary Horker, who has gotten this from sources that tell him SWAT teams, as we believed and as you suspected, are sweeping the entire mall right now. And also Border Patrol helicopters are joining in the search outside around the area of the Cascade Mall. So all assets are being brought to bear here in trying to find who this person was that walked in to the Cascade Mall in Burlington sometime around 7 o'clock this evening, opened fire, and according to the Washington State Patrol, now confirmed 4 people were shot to death in the mall. That is the first number we have been given. No word on the numbers of injuries, if any more, are associated with this shooting.
Now, just south of Cascade Mall, there is a Costco. Perhaps we can see that on this map that's up before you, perhaps not. But in any case, we are hearing now from someone who just called into the station that they were at Costco, and that Costco has decided to let people leave if they want to, if they need to. They are not letting anyone enter. So this is just as Jesus was talking about, that the caution has kind of a ripple effect in that area as they continue to look for the suspect, who has only been described really as a male in gray clothing at Cascade Mall, who opened fire, killed at least 4 people. We don't know about how many injured.
We are approaching 8:20 on this Friday evening, an evening that is usually associated with date nights and high school football and all the rest, and tonight it is associated with murder. It is associated with a shooting, the shooting deaths of 4 people so far, according to the Washington State Patrol, at the Cascade Mall in Burlington. Along with Monique Minglaven, I'm Steve Rabel. You are joining us, we expect, on our digital platforms on KIRO7.com and along with Facebook Live. We will continue to break in as well on KIRO 7 throughout the course of the evening to update you on further information. But again, as we have it tonight, the search is on for the shooter. There have been some reports that he left the mall and was headed toward Interstate 5. That was early on. Latest reports say the building is being swept just in case he has not left, or they have not left, and may still be found on the property of the Cascade Mall.
This is the only video that we've gotten from the scene at this point, clearly taken a while ago, as it is still quite light. We should let you know that Chopper 7 is on its way. So are all of the KIRO 7 crews. Burlington, quite a bit north of Seattle, so it will take them a little while to get there, but they are all working their sources as they go as well to get the very latest situation. And it is from Gary Horker that we found out, actually, that these multiple SWAT teams were sweeping the mall, and especially concentrating on Macy's, on the men's department there, and that they had found and recovered 4 victims who were killed.
Jesus, you have been talking to us about what law enforcement will do, what first responders will do, what they're trained to do. You have studied these cases, and there unfortunately have been far too many of these cases in this country over the last 10, 15 years. Are there some things that you know, that first responders know, that tend to happen in virtually all of these cases, or in the majority of these cases, that you can almost count on as you approach this kind of situation?
There is, depending on what it is. We don't know yet if this is an active shooter, as in someone disgruntled, someone that's trying to do a copycat of recent events in St. Cloud, Minnesota, or if this is an actual ISIS attack, which, again, let's not forget that ISIS claimed the attack at the mall in Minnesota. So it depends who it is. If it's someone that's going to be related to a potential terrorist attack, then the chances are that they're going to continue to try to create as much carnage as possible, including with law enforcement, which is why we're being so careful. You have to remember that we may be sleeping, but we don't know what is a potential threat in that mall that may have been set up for us. So if it's the latter, there's going to be a lot more caution. That's why I can tell you right now, all of these assets are being deployed because of the recent attack at the St. Cloud Mall that was related to ISIS. You're going to see, and I'm sure you're going to see FBI already en route out there. My guess is that they're going to be in the instant command post. And my guess is that we have information right now. If the shooter's down, we already know that. The problem is, the challenge with that is, they're not going to release that yet because, again, we've got to confirm the witness testimony that there was only one shooter. So there's a lot going on behind the scenes that can't really be released for sake of safety to the public and safety to the officers that are there. But as we predicted, you're going to have multiple jurisdictions, multiple birds in the air. You're going to have FLIR. You're going to have officers searching with night vision goggles through scopes. This is going to be a very complicated situation, specifically because it is nighttime and the volume of traffic that you have going on at that time right now, like you said, on Friday night.
And we have already gotten word that Border Patrol has lent its helicopter at least to search in that general area to perhaps help get eyes on a suspect there. You mentioned that you believe that there must be FBI resources that are heading in that direction. As you also mentioned, unfortunately, this makes us all think about a number of scenarios, everything from terrorism to active shooter, stranger situations to targeted shootings. What kind of resources would you expect, in addition to the FBI, are heading there right now as they try to figure out what actually is going on?
Well, besides the tactical resources, which are obvious, I mean, you're listing all of those very well, and again, it's what we would have predicted and expected. But there's also got to be recovery resources. You've got to remember that this is a mass, what we call a mass casualty incident, right? This is hundreds of people, hundreds of shoppers of different ages. We've got to find ways to make sure that as they're being brought into the staging area to be interviewed, that we're able to console them, that we're able to have crisis counselors there, people that can calm them to give us good information. We've got to be able to feed them. We've got to be able to give them water. We've got to make sure that their loved ones are contacted so that they know that they're okay, while still trying to determine the identities of those that have been killed. So there's a lot of resources going into play here and a lot of standby resources as well. I can assure you that probably there's a potential that in the next 24 hours you may have, there's NOVA team, which is a national organization of victim assistance. It's a federal team that comes out on active shooting events. There's so many things going on here that are being set up just to make sure that we're not looking at each individual piece as a silo. Rather, we're looking at it completely as what would the community respond, what would they expect from us, including, school starting on Monday. I can tell you that when school starts on Monday, you're going to see an increased police presence at the schools in those areas, simply because we don't know what this is about yet.
Jesus, if I can interject this from, again, Sergeant Mark Francis from the Washington State Patrol. There is now word that survivors from inside the mall, this is to the families of those who they believe were at the mall at the time. The survivors inside will be transported via bus to His Place Church. His Place Church there in Burlington. That's at the corner of Pease Road and Burlington Boulevard. Once again, survivors from inside the mall will be bused to a church where friends and family can meet up with them. So again, just another part of the puzzle that sometimes we don't think about. We think about those who have lost their lives. We think about the shooter and, of course, the first responders. But what about all the people that were inside the building at the time that have either hunkered down or have taken off?
And Jesus, as we saw with the Marysville Pilchuck High School shooting, not only do those folks want to be reunited with their loved ones, but investigators need them away from the scene, this active scene, so that folks who are understandably very concerned about their loved ones who may have been in the area, so that they don't clog up that area and potentially put themselves in harm's way, in addition to getting in the way of investigators and responders who are trying desperately to get a handle on this situation.
Right, and this is something we just discussed a few minutes ago. This is the reunification point is what it's called. And so now what's going to happen at the reunification point is once those buses are taken to that church, and by the way, the church staff has been alerted, they're going to come and help. I can assure you that other churches are going to volunteer their staff to come and console and be there for people to help them with this process. It's a large enough church. There's probably going to be some food there. Parking is going to be good enough. But they're going to have to control who comes in and out of that parking spot. What you're going to see that's interesting is police will set a perimeter around the church. You're not just going to be able to just drive up and say, hey, I'm Judy's boyfriend. You're going to have to present some type of identification that connects you to the person they're releasing. Because, again, we want to make sure of who's coming in and who's coming out. Because the last thing we want to do is let some stranger in and then all of a sudden have another event there. So, again, you're going to see another layer of security here because, again, we're trying to protect those people from the potential of a secondary attack.
Jesus, you mentioned protect those people from a secondary attack. I don't think those of us civilians can quite comprehend what law enforcement does in situations like this. At the sound of gunfire, they run to the gunfire. That's something that seems like an anathema to most of us, and yet that's what first responders now are trained to do, run immediately toward that gunfire if they can get there in time, right?
Well, I will tell you, Steve, that first responders, and actually I call them emergency responders, our law enforcement men and women in this country, 800,000 of them strong, I can guarantee that my brothers and sisters out there have been running towards gunfire for decades. We're just relating it to active shooter because it's just it's obviously such a phenomenon in the last 30 years. But we've been doing this for decades, and God bless them because, you know what, they want to do it. They're not afraid to do it. They want to do it. They live to do it because they absolutely know that there's people out there that are trying to oppress those who can't protect themselves. So God bless them for being out there. I have the utmost respect for them out there. And please, for those of you that are listening to law enforcement, I know you're already doing this. I don't have to tell you. Just watch 360. Just watch it 360.
Sure. Now, we should also say that we're hearing from Maria Guerrero right now that she's seeing there are two Macy's actually at that mall. But the worker whom she spoke with at Macy's tells her that this did not happen at the home goods store. Again, we were getting initial word that the active shooter teams were especially concentrating on the men's department at the Macy's at the Cascade Mall right now. So we are getting a little bit more information as it's coming out. Also, there's a fair number of people, the Hispanic population out there, that perhaps English is not your first language and you are trying to get information. We would really encourage you to follow Maria Guerrero on Twitter. She is bilingual and she's putting out these tweets in both English and Spanish right now. And
let me pass along to you the newest information we're getting, Jesus, and all of you who are watching with us on our live platforms as well as Facebook Live here this evening as we approach 8:30 on this Friday night. The latest from Mark Francis from the Washington State Patrol is that EMS is now entering the mall to attend to the injured inside with a police escort. This was after an initial clearance. So, Jesus, what does that tell you? Safe enough for EMTs to go in there, at least the portion where they are finding injured. And this really is the first time we've heard that there are now injured associated with the 4 already confirmed dead.
Yeah, and again, you know, Steve, unfortunately, and it kills me to say it, but I've just been to so many of these that there's no way you're going to have that many dead without having some injured. It's especially with an active shooter who's trying to shoot off as many rounds as possible. The emergency responders, I will tell you that the emergency responders that are going in are going to go under protection of an active shooter team, because again, that tells us the area is secured. And I will also tell you that the new training in law enforcement is that we ourselves, we're pursuing the active shooter, and I can tell you that once those areas were cleared of certain of any threat, that even law enforcement probably got involved in some of the immediate first aid for some of these injured. So it's good to hear that, again, in my mind, everything's actually happening the way I would expect it to happen in the time frame. Kudos to the State Patrol, by the way. They are doing an outstanding job of releasing information as it's occurring, giving the public a place to go to for information, giving them a place for reunification with their loved ones, and trying to get out as much information as we can about this individual, because we know in the end we will either capture him because he's going to face off with us in that mall or somewhere nearby, or we're going to catch him because a citizen is going to see him and report it, because that's how many of these individuals have been caught.
Okay, Jesus, for anyone who is joining us right now, we're talking about an active shooter situation that developed at the Cascade Mall in Burlington about 7:30 tonight. We've been on since then about an hour now, and in that time we have gotten it confirmed that 4 people have been murdered. There have been several other people injured who are now being attended to by the folks who are responding there so bravely to the situation, where there's still a lot of questions. All we are hearing at this point was a witness in gray, male, and we are not hearing anything about an apparent motive or where he may be at this point. And one thing I do want to bring up as well, we are trying to get so much information from inside the mall, but Jesus, for people who are in the mall who are watching this right now on their phones, or who are in contact texting with their families outside of the mall, what information should those people know inside the mall who are in lockdown, who are maybe just trying to get information themselves? What advice would you give them?
Well, the nice part about social media is, as they're listening, they may be on the KIRO app, and I'm sure that, or on the Facebook app. So, excuse me. At the end of the day, the nice thing about social media is we can actually update them. They can now see and they can hear, or they can know by text by loved ones, hey, the cops are in the mall, the area is secure, just stay where you're at, they're going to come rescue you. Which is, when you're in an active shooting situation, you're hiding for your life, locking down. This is all information that of course, is very relieving, if you can imagine. And some of these people are going to go through some post-traumatic stress as a result of this. It's a very emotional situation to think they have survived something like this. But again, I would tell them the biggest thing is, when law enforcement prepares to enter where you're at, whatever store you're in, and when they announce themselves, and they will announce themselves, you need to make sure that your hands are clearly visible. Put your phones away. Put them in your pocket. Do not have them in your hands. Please don't try to record things that it could really be construed as a potential threat. So just put those things in your pocket. Keep your hands clear. Listen to their commands, because they're there to help. That's the biggest message I would give those people. And more importantly, hey, we're there. We're in there. We're going to get to you. Okay, the active shooter is running. Whether he's dead, we don't know yet, or whether he's running for his life, we don't know yet. But what we do know is the good guys are there, and you're now safe.
Boy, that's good advice, because as we remember from these similar situations, you always see these folks coming out. They're so scared with their hands above their heads. And it's hard to understand or even imagine the terror they're going through while they have their hands above their heads. But as you point out, authorities really need to know who is the danger there, and folks need to be cooperative even in these tense and chaotic situations.
Let me see as well if I can paint the picture for those who are perhaps watching again on the KIRO 7 app, or who are listening or watching on Facebook Live and may not be in this area. They could be watching anywhere in the country as we're bringing you this live information. 8:35 Pacific time here in the Seattle area. Burlington is just about an hour north of Seattle. It's not a very large community. It's right along Interstate 5. It's sitting astride Interstate 5. A number of outlet malls up there, some shopping areas up there, and this is one. The Cascade Mall, one of the older malls in the area, built in 1990, and it is the scene tonight. The very first still picture we have now gotten in from the scene. We had that somewhat grainy video that was sent in to us very, very quickly. Now we can see a little more of the response with EMS there along with fire department. There is an EMS vehicle there. They look like at this point they were staging to go in. Well, now we have gotten word that, in fact, EMS has entered at least a part of the mall to begin to attend to those who are injured. No numbers yet, no word other than 4 people killed in the mall tonight.
We still have not gotten word either about a motive in this. Jesus Villahermosa, who is on the line with us as well, who has a lot of experience with active shooter training as well as being on the SWAT team for Pierce County previously. You were about to say.
Well, one of the things that is also going to happen is you're going to see a volunteering of local police agencies even further south or further to the east. They're going to volunteer to, again, to aid. It's called a mutual aid agreement. because we know that this scene is going to go through the next few hours, and there's officers that have already served a 10 or 12-hour shift tonight, and they're going to have to be rotated out. So again, there's a lot of logistics here, but the good news is that we're all partners in this, and every law enforcement jurisdiction knows what it's like to be in a situation like this, and that's why you're going to see this voluntary, if you will.
Breaking news.
And this is breaking news here on KIRO 7 Television, along with Monique Minglov, and I'm Steve Rabel. As we now approach just past 8:35 here in Seattle, we are bringing you live continuing coverage of the breaking news in Burlington at the Cascade Mall, an active shooter situation, 4 people confirmed dead by the Washington State Patrol.
We are also hearing of injured who are starting to be attended to now. This is really just in the last several moments, and we just got this picture of those EMS crews arriving at the scene as well as they try to get to those people. How many, we do not know. What we do know is that they are responding to the Macy's there at the Cascade Mall, where they found those 4 people who were killed.
If you have friends, family, survivors, someone inside that mall that you're not sure about, are they okay? We are told by the State Patrol that survivors are being bused to His Place Church. That's on the corner of Pease Road and Burlington Boulevard in Burlington. Survivors heading there. If you have people, if you have family, perhaps someone who works in the mall, that is the place to go to find them.
This is still an active situation, an active investigation. They do not know where the suspect is. Very vague description of this person, a man in gray. That is all that they have released at this point. We're going to have the very latest on Facebook Live and at 11.
For continuing coverage of this breaking news, stay with KIRO 7 News on mobile, online, and on air.
Hey, Josh, you there?
This is KIRO 7 Breaking News.
We continue our breaking news coverage here on KIRO 7 and all of our digital platforms. This, again, a very disturbing story. Just north of Seattle, about an hour, the town of Burlington, a shooting, an active shooter situation in the Cascade Mall. Again, no word on the shooter being apprehended at this point or even knowing where that shooter is. What we do know, unfortunately, is that 4 people have been shot and killed. And
that this scene of concern especially is really growing from the mall. It has also included the Costco, which is just south of there, where no one is being let in at this point. People are being released, but no one is being let in. We're also getting word that the Lakewood at Burlington Edison football game was evacuated as we got this picture just a little while ago of EMS crews who have arrived there at the mall and who fairly recently were cleared to go in and attend to the injured there. Again, this is 4 people who were murdered at the Cascade Mall. We do not know the number of injured. And who has been with us this entire time since we've been reporting on this for over an hour now. Jesus Villahermosa remains with us. He's giving us great insight into the response there and the possible scenarios given his experience with the previous SWAT teams and also his current role as an active shooter trainer. He has actually been here to KIRO 7 to help us out to figure out how we should all prepare for these sorts of situations. Unfortunately, this is becoming all too familiar to us in our community and others. Jesus, for those who are just joining us, let's reset. I know we have talked extensively at this point for over an hour now about this. Maybe we can go back, sort of reset the scene for us. What happens when that first call comes in that there is an active shooter at the mall? Before we know anything else, what happens with respect to those first responders? What's their first move?
Well, you know, the emergency responders, their first reaction, of course, is they're going to get there as quickly as possible. And we want the shooter to know we're coming because at the end of the day, the faster we get there, the less the fatality rate. We've got FBI, produced a report last year that tells us active shooting times have dropped, specifically because of all the training we've done nationally and because of better citizen response. So they're flying to get there. They're driving quickly. They're trying to figure out where everything's at. You have to remember all they get is a shooting at the Macy's. So now I've got to go in with maybe 1 or 2 people or by myself, and I'm going to go in with my weapon, my long rifle or handgun, depending what's issued in those departments, and I'm going to aggressively seek out the shooter. I'm going to do that through the knowledge that people feed me. If they're pointing a certain way, that tells me where I've got to go. So those first few seconds of being in the mall are actually the most dangerous for the first group that are in there, because they're actively pursuing the shooter to distract the shooter to them and make them, if you will, the targets for the shooter, while not expose themselves, so that he takes his mind off of those innocent victims. So again, just courageous men and women that responded to this. And one thing I'd like to add, Steve, is we've talked about that that responding piece, but let's also keep in mind the hospitals right now that are going to be filling up with the injured and how they've trained for this, and making sure that the injured are taken to the appropriate facility given the level of trauma care. That's all rehearsed by the hospitals, the paramedics, fire departments, and the police department. They've literally rehearsed it so that they don't send someone to the wrong facility that can't give them the level of trauma care that they need. So that's the way law enforcement is going to respond, aggressively. We're going to respond aggressively because we've got an aggressive person killing people, and we're trying to distract that person to us.
When you were talking about the aggressive response, Jesus, you had brought up the possibility that maybe even if they had located the shooter, even if that person were down, that they wouldn't announce it for a while because they really needed to confirm that that was in fact, the suspect. But we actually just heard from Sergeant Mark Francis of the Washington State Patrol just about 4 minutes ago. He said that they are still actively searching for the suspect and tracking leads. So at this point, it sounds like they do not know about the whereabouts of the suspect who has killed 4 people and injured an unknown number more.
Which is why they're going to have to go, Monique, very detailed through that mall, because remember, we always have people that tell us what they think they saw, and then we later find out it wasn't the shooter at all. So we're following a lot of leads here. That's why there's so much manpower there, because if someone says he left, we're going to follow that down I-5. If someone says, no, I don't think he left, I think he ducked into a store, they've got to follow that as well. So those are the things. It's kind of like the Dallas shooting. Let's not forget that he finally holed up behind a stairwell, a concrete stairwell, and that's where finally all the attention came to. The shooter in the St. Cloud in Minnesota, he killed himself, he was killed by a police officer who was first on scene that was an off-duty officer. So you have a lot of dynamics here, and if Sergeant Francis is saying that they're still searching, then I absolutely believe at this point that we still have a roving active shooter. And I think that the public needs to be very, very careful tonight, especially on a Friday night. We need to make sure that this is being broadcast on all major forms of media, social and broadcast media, because this guy may do something as simple as duck into another mall, or he may duck into a bar, because the best place to get lost is where? In a public place. I mean, let's not forget that the terrorist suspect in the attack in New Jersey was found sleeping on the doorstep of a bar, right? So people, the biggest thing right now, if I could just tell anybody what to do is as far as give them advice, is keep your eyes open. The more information that Sergeant Francis is putting in about this suspect shooter, the more people are going to start calling in, hey, there's a guy over here, he's behind this alley, or I think I see someone that matches the description. That's how we're going to catch this guy. I really believe that, unless he somehow gets stopped in a roadblock, which I don't think, at this point, I don't think that that's going to be reasonable.
Well, it has been quite a night in the Burlington area, again, from the shooting scene there at the Cascade Mall to a high school football game where the game was stopped. The stadium was evacuated to try to get people out of the way. And again, as you mentioned, that stadium about a mile from the Cascade Mall there on Cascade Mall Drive in Burlington, about 66 miles as the crow flies, directly north on Interstate 5 from downtown Seattle. This is all happening. And again, first responders, law enforcement, Washington State Patrol, Sheriff's Office, Border Patrol helicopters, we understand, also everyone converging on the mall there, and starting those concentric circles and working their way out in hopes of tracking this shooter down, as Jesus has been so aptly explaining to us during the course of this evening. Here is another still that we are just, actually it is video, it is now rolling, the video coming in, and there you see at least one EMS unit, a number of law enforcement officers standing at the ready, along with a police van, a truck, a mobile headquarters, all set up just outside the entrance of the Cascade Mall. Again, this is now coming up on about 2 hours since the shooting. We understand the shooting sometime around 7 o'clock this evening.
And we should mention as well, we have kept that graphic up at the bottom of the screen there saying confirmed 4 dead in the shooting. That is the word we are getting from State Patrol right now. But we also got a tweet from Sergeant Mark Francis that said that as EMS is starting to enter the building, attend to the people there, they actually are holding out hope that that number of 4 killed will actually go down. So we are not sure where the confusion is there. They came out again saying that 4 people had killed, but they are holding out hope that that number will go down. I believe I'm hearing Cairo 7's Gary Horker on the phone. Was that Gary, did you just arrive at the scene?
I did arrive at the scene here, and in fact, we've got multiple scenes. There are multiple scenes here. It's not just the investigation going on at the mall, where right now I can report they're trying to get some of the people who are in the mall who are sheltering in place out of the mall through, they told us, the Chuck E. Cheese exit. So what we understand is that the people there were a lot of stores that were locked down up and down the mall. They were advised to stay locked down. People were sheltering in place. And what the SWAT teams have done is they have gone methodically and done a primary search. Now they're doing a secondary search of the mall to try and find out if there's any other suspects, if there are any other victims, other than the ones that we understand were in the women's section, at Macy's. The women's section, did you say? That we had heard men's earlier, but you're saying in the women's section of the Macy's? Well, we're hearing reports of both, and as you know, anybody who's been in a Macy's knows sometimes the line is blurred. You know that it could have been a little of both. So they've got multiple teams inside the mall right now. There are also other teams in Burlington. Somebody fitting the description, we understand, of the suspect tried to break into a home in another part of Burlington. So a lot of the members of the SWAT team have broken off and have tried to go in that direction. Somebody describing themselves as the shooter also called police, and they tried to put a crisis negotiator on the phone with that person. So it's a chaotic scene here. I've covered other mall shootings, unfortunately. I don't remember one where they were looking for an active shooter outside of the mall where the shooter actually got away. So that's what makes this such a very unusual and unpredictable situation.
Gary, we're going to go to a news conference right now. Let me interrupt you for a moment. Here's State Patrol.
We believe it's just one suspect, but we haven't confirmed that. The suspect was last known location was he was heading west from the mall, described as a Hispanic male, wearing gray is what I was given. Once we started clearing the mall, that's when we realized there was 4 victims inside the mall. The original belief was that they were confirmed. Last I checked, EMS was going in with police. Hopefully that number will come down. Don't know motive right now. Don't know any other further description on the shooter. We're actively looking for the shooter, tracking down any leads we can to find out who the shooter or shooters were.
Any word on the injury situation?
As far as injuries, I haven't heard of any injuries other than the 4 originally believed to be deceased, but that number obviously could change as EMS is going through there.
How many people are still locked down in this mall? Large facility, a lot of people I'm sure ran in lockdown.
Don't know. Obviously, you're going to have people that are probably hiding in pretty clever spots trying to avoid what was going on. So you do your first initial clearance, then you do your secondaries, then you got EMS going with you. So we're going to be looking this place over thoroughly.
Do you know anything about a secondary scene where a man tried to break into a house that fits the description of the shooter?
I don't.
Who is he?
Yeah, there's been several 911 calls. Obviously, we got to work through those and figure out which ones are legitimate and which ones are not.
Is this scene secure and safe?
Look around you. It's pretty secure.
Is there anything else you can give us at this point?
Not at this point, but hopefully I'll have more here in a second.
Thank you.
Yeah, so we're going to move back to that stop sign.
That was a press briefing that you were watching live here on Cairo 7. And there you see from overhead now, this is Chopper 7 getting those first pictures into us live of where the briefing just was. And when you listen to that Washington State Patrol officer say, just take a look around you, does it look secure? It looks secure. There are flashing lights from here to Burlington and all around the Cascade Mall Drive, which surrounds the Cascade Mall just off of Interstate 5. Again, if you're just joining us as we're approaching 9 p.m., we are live on Cairo 7. We are live on Facebook and all our digital platforms to tell you there has been a shooting at Cascade Mall tonight in Burlington, and 4 people have been killed. Now, again, what Monique, you brought up a few moments ago and what the state trooper just said, the initial pass-through of the first responders, they said they found 4 people they believe to be deceased. Now EMT is going in to see if, in fact, they will also be confirming that there are 4 dead. And listen, all we can hope is that maybe some of those people are close to but have not expired at this point.
And we should note, they mentioned, yes, this does look secure. What it isn't, as far as we know, is contained. We don't know where the shooter is, whether he is on these grounds or outside of them. What we do know is that they believe that there are multiple people who have been killed in this situation. And Jesus Villahermosa, I hope that you are still on the line for us, because there are a couple of things we heard and a couple of things we did not in this media conference. Unfortunately, we're going to try and get Jesus back on because he has a lot of experience with these type of active shooter situations. But Steve, what I couldn't help but notice from what that state patrol official was saying was that there were 4 victims. And as Jesus had told us before, if you have an active shooter who goes into an area and randomly opens fire, right, you're going to have the people who were killed and then many more injured. Now, if they think that it was contained to 4, that is a horrible number, but perhaps it means that the suspect had a target there.
Think of how much worse it possibly could be, and at this point, we have no indication of how bad it is, at least inside that mall, but there is every reason to believe that all of the responding police agencies on scene now have already made one pass through the primary search of the area, a secondary search going on, according to our Gary Horker, who is on scene. The one thing I didn't get a chance to ask Gary, I'm assuming he's got to be outside that loop of all the fire and police on the scene there, probably by that staging area where you see all of the flashing lights that Chopper 7 was just trained on a moment ago. And again, as we reach almost the 2-hour point in this this shooting story coming out of Burlington, you can see Cairo 7 now has its assets deployed with Chopper 7, with news crews on the scene, and we will be bringing you continuous live coverage tonight, both on Cairo 7 and on Facebook Live and all of our digital platforms.
And Steve, we should mention that we're hearing from Skagit Valley Hospital right now, just received word that they have received 1 patient. They cannot talk about the injuries or anything more about that patient, but this goes back to the early information that we heard, which that there were 4 people confirmed dead, but they said when EMS got inside the mall, they were hoping that number would come down and that 1 or more of those people would actually be survivors or at least just injured at this point. We don't know whether this 1 person who has arrived at Skagit Valley Hospital was one of the original 4 or in addition to it. We clearly have crews who are devoted to covering this story. They are trying to get the specifics and the details ironed out, as are authorities. This is a confusing and chaotic situation, which the pictures tell you themselves, as Chopper 7 remains over the scene of this shooting situation at the Cascade Mall in Burlington, just off of I-5.
Take a look at the pictures again from Chopper 7 as we pull out, and right now we're having a little bit of a freeze on the video, but there it is. There you see the mall, the large portion lighted with those, it looks like vertical and horizontal lights. They're the long string of lights there. That is the mall itself, the various buildings and arms coming off the mall. There you see one of the main entrances where the staging area is for law enforcement, but we also saw around the other side of the mall, there are police and fire on that side as well, near a restaurant. I believe that was a Chili's on that side of the mall. We have our Henry Rossoff, who is standing by. He was there at the press conference a moment ago. He is in the middle of all of that. Henry.
me and show you law enforcement. We heard that EMTs just started to go into the mall. You can see the entrance to the right, the sign Cascade Mall with the Chuck E. Cheese sign right underneath. And then we'll swing back to the left and show you the scene as I kind of recap the briefing that we just got from the State Trooper Public Information Officer, Mark Francis. He said EMTs, it took them a long time to be able to go in there and begin evaluating people because the scene needed to be cleared. They do believe this scene is secure and safe, but they're going about the business of treating victims right now. One tiny bit of hope that Trooper Francis threw out during our briefing, he said, at last check, it was just an initial check through where they announced and found out that 4 people were deceased. He's hoping as paramedics and EMTs go in, 1 or 2 of those people may be able to survive. He said it was a slim chance, just a little bit of hope, but he says when the medical professionals get in there and begin evaluating the situation, it may become less bleak. So right now, there may in fact even be people inside the mall, according to Trooper Francis. He says there are a lot of nooks and crannies, a lot of creative places where people could, would, and should hide in this situation. I was also able to ask Trooper Francis if there were any secondary scenes where they were investigating, seeking, or looking for a shooter. We're investigating that possibility right now ourselves, but the trooper was not able to say if there are any active scenes being looked at this moment. We did see just about 5 minutes ago, right before I went on air with you guys, there were quite a lot of personnel that seemed to not de-escalate, but leave this scene in quite a bit of a hurry and move to a secondary scene. We're about to be pushed back a little bit farther, but I probably have a few minutes to hang on here and bring you guys live coverage of this situation. But that's all I really have from Trooper Mark Francis, having arrived here just 5 minutes ago and gotten a very brief briefing with him.
Henry, you have only been there for a little while, and clearly it is still chaotic, although they do say that it is secure there. Can you do anything more for us, though, about trying to clarify how many victims there might be? We had heard initially that there were 4 people who were killed. They hoped that number would go down. Then we heard one person was taken to the hospital from this situation. Do we know, is it confirmed to 4 people and we just don't know their conditions, or is it possibly more than 4?
It's possibly more than 4 because remember, and again, I want to give you a live look here because we see some police activity, perhaps them interviewing witnesses over there, and I want to make sure we're still sharing the live pictures. But all we know is the initial report, according to the public information officer for State Patrol, 4 deceased. He said he had no idea how many, if there were even any, injuries. So he had no real grasp on that number. And as you say, Monique, a very fluid situation. So we're not 100% sure. And Trooper Francis said he was not really focused on the injuries, just on the tentative number of fatalities. So certainly we could be hearing about both people who are deceased and people who are sent to the hospital in much better shape. We really don't have a great grasp right now if those 4 people are in fact the correct number, if it will be 4 people who died here tonight with many more injured, or if that's the extent of the damage, and perhaps we may even end up with not 4 people deceased, maybe just 2 or 3, and that's the grim hope here tonight.
Henry, realizing that you haven't been on the scene that long, obviously, racing up there with our videographers to get all this chronicled for us, have you had a chance to talk to anybody outside of law enforcement? Anybody who was inside the mall? Have you heard from anyone who was perhaps a witness to people running out of the mall? Do you have any sense for that?
Truthfully, Steve, we did not. We do know that many people who were in the mall and were escorted out by law enforcement within the last half hour are being brought to a church nearby. I know we have other crews headed there. We quite literally hopped out of our live truck and got this signal up as soon as possible, sprinted over to the state trooper and got a briefing. Frankly, I don't even know how much of that you guys were able to take live on television, so I've been recapping it for you as much as possible. But really all I have is this brief conversation with law enforcement and our first up-close look at the command center out there as they go about still clearing this scene, still evaluating victims inside the mall, and still trying to find out how many people are locked down inside the mall. This has been going on since 7 o'clock today, and they say the mall was absolutely jam-packed. Essentially, they say anyone who wasn't at the nearby high school football game, which was suspended in light of this, tended to be in this part of town here doing shopping, eating dinner. So they say there may be hundreds of people perhaps still in the mall tonight.
Okay, Henry Rossoff reporting live for us from Burlington, where there is this active shooter situation. 4 casualties. We'll have the latest on Facebook Live.
For continuing coverage of this breaking news, stay with KIRO. This is KIRO 7 breaking news.
We are continuing to follow breaking news here. It is 9 o'clock on a Friday evening in Seattle. 1 hour north of here, the small community of Burlington has experienced a tragic situation. A mall shooting at the Cascade Mall in Burlington. 4 people dead, according to the Washington State Patrol. We are hoping that that number will be adjusted downward. At this point, there's no reason to think that it will be, but that is the hope. No word on other casualties, and there is no word on a shooter being captured at this point. The search is on. It's been an active night north of Seattle.
And as we have continued our coverage tonight, we know more people are joining us right now. Many people in that area probably pretty panicked and wondering what's going on. For anyone who has not been able to get a hold of or arrange a meeting place for someone who may have been involved, authorities there are really asking people to stay away from the Cascade Mall, go to His Place Church near Pease Road and Burlington Boulevard, where they are taking folks who have been taken out of the mall. That will be their safe place where folks can meet up instead of adding to the chaos which is outside of the Cascade Mall right now.
These pictures are live. We are feeding in from our Henry Rossoff and our news team there. You see sheriff's office officials. It looks like an FBI jacket I see there as well. We know that State Patrol is on the scene. Any number of agencies have now responded to this shooting in the mall. There is absolutely no idea at this point of a motive, who the suspect may be or suspects may be. Right now, it is believed that it's a person who was seen running from the mall or leaving the mall dressed in gray and red. That is all that we have been given by State Patrol. There have been any number of other reports coming into our reporters and also being reported on various digital platforms that said there was at least one break-in in the area and that the police were called, possibly could have been the suspect. Again, none of that confirmed and no word on those. What we do have confirmed right now is what you see on the screen, is 4 people dead in this shooting at the Cascade Mall. And
what you just said really touches on the confusion there, that they're getting calls from people saying that someone in a house break-in matched the description of the shooter here. All we have of the description of the shooter is that he was wearing gray, and now we're hearing a little bit of red, too. That is so vague, but as you can imagine, people are on pins and needles in this area, knowing that this man is still out there. Not only is this a scene at Cascade Mall where they're trying to get a handle on how many people were actually shot and how serious their injuries are, but also there's a ripple effect coming out from the mall heading south, north, east, west as people are being alerted about the situation and are affected by it. The nearby football game at Burlington Edison High School, they were playing Lakewood there. That football game was evacuated because that is just about a mile north of this scene. So folks are certainly being careful tonight, hopefully.
We have also gotten word from Skagit Valley Hospital. At least one person has been received there, one patient. No word on condition, no word on the name or sex of that person, who that might be. But it was interesting, I thought, and let's go back to Henry Rossoff because he's standing by there live for us. Henry, the first word that you got was that mall was jammed tonight, that it had a lot of people, a Friday night, lots of nightlife, lots of little, small restaurants in the area. And again, as you said, if you weren't at the high school football game, not far from there, you were probably at the mall.
The police say they are still looking for people who may be hiding in the mall when they heard the shots ring out. Let's take you to a live look at the command center right now. I just got briefed, as I was telling you guys before, by Washington State Patrol. Public Information Officer Mark Francis handling distributing information right now. They believe initially 4 people deceased, and they just now are really getting into the mall and conducting a thorough search effort for people who were hiding. Their initial thought and initial mission was to clear and find and secure this active shooter. They never did end up finding the active shooter. All we have is that vague description of a Hispanic man wearing gray clothing. But once they were able to determine that the mall was at least safe to their best estimate, now they have EMTs, paramedics, people going in just trying to search for those who locked down inside the mall. They say there could be hundreds hiding inside for all they know. They just wanted to clear the active shooter situation, and now they're moving toward treating people, comforting people, and trying to find anyone who was hiding and interview them as potential witnesses. I mean, in fact, you see, look there to the left, you see a trooper walking with a woman. She was just looking a little bit distraught just a second ago. Bear with us, the angle, guys. You can see there, troopers interviewing, police interviewing anyone who might have seen anything. You can see a woman to the right there, if we zoom in, standing kind of huddled down in a blanket. And this is the type of heavy, detail-oriented work that law enforcement is going to have to go through now as they find people hiding throughout this mall, and they try to paint a picture and even at this early stage build an investigation for inevitably finding the active shooter. We were also able to ask if there was a secondary scene that we are investigating where the active shooter may be held up, but the spokesman for the State Patrol said that he didn't have any information about that. I'm going to respectfully have to toss it back to you guys. We're being asked to move back, and I'm trying to respect those commands. So bear with us. I'm going to send it back to you guys, and I'll be able to rejoin you very, very shortly.
All right, understandable there, Henry, as police are trying to not only cordon off the area, but they want to kind of widen the circle out to make sure that they have enough room for all of their assets that are coming into the area. As we've talked about, we've seen mobile police units, we've seen all manner of patrol cars, and in fact, Border Patrol helicopters reported circling the area and looking in that search area around the mall. As we told you a few moments ago, the first initial report said that this suspect was seen leaving the mall and heading in the direction of Interstate 5. And we know that that could be coming south towards Seattle or going north toward the Canadian border. And
as you mentioned, this is a pretty small community we're talking about. They don't have a lot of resources immediately at their disposal, and that is why different law enforcement folks are converging there from different agencies, as we can see all of those flashing lights at the Cascade Mall in Burlington, as they try to get a handle on just how deadly, frankly, this situation was. We know that there were at least 4 people who were shot. We don't know their conditions, but Kairos 7's Gary Horker he arrived in that area a couple of minutes ago. And Gary, you've talked to some people. Are you at his place right now, the church where survivors were supposed to be taken from the mall?
That's exactly where we are right now. Pease Road and Burlington Boulevard. This is his place church. We just saw a bunch of firefighters come and go. They're trying to coordinate exactly how they're going to deal with all the survivors. We don't know how many there are, but we understand there are a lot of them. They're going to be getting in shuttles and buses, and they're going to be dropped off here, brought into the church so family members can come and retrieve those people. That mall is locked down. They're not going to be able to get to their vehicles, their cars, whatever they have is not going to be accessible. We're going to pan over. You can see how close we are to that is the primary entrance right there to Cascade Mall. I'm going to brief you on everything that I've heard here at the scene, what's been happening up until this minute. They have a Custom and Border Patrol helicopter offering support, and they used them. There have been multiple reports of people who fit the description of the shooter out and about. One man in a motorcycle, they're checking that out. That's about 7 miles away from where I am right now. Another man who tried to break into a residence. Some of the SWAT team broke off and went to that location. The air support has a FLIR, a camera which shows a heat signature, so you can't get away from that. If there is a suspect hiding, and you may see that right above the mall there, that may be them. they're going to be able to track that person. So they've got federal support in the air and on the ground. And what we understand right now is they are nearing completion of their secondary search of the mall. As Henry Rossoff just told you moments ago, they're trying to clear all parts of the mall, but there are still reports that are some store employees and people who are shopping who lock themselves into dressing rooms and into other parts of the mall, and they were too frightened to come out. They didn't trust knocks at the door. They're trying to get those people out as well. Folks, just imagine the stress on all of the first responders here trying to go into this situation. You don't know if there are active shooters still in there. You don't know if there are other victims in there. And, you know, every decision that they make right now is life and death, not only for them, but for people on the other side of that who they're trying to rescue. Lots of good people trying to do their work here. As the victims are being tended to inside, again, the survivors are going to be coming to His Place Church here, and that's where we're going to hope to get some eyewitnesses accounts of what happened. I also have, if you haven't gotten it, did we give a description of the suspect? Because about 5 minutes ago, they gave an updated description. It's a 20 to 25-year-old Hispanic male with light skin. The people who witnessed the assailant in the mall said he was 5'8" to 5'9", skinny, had very messy, long black hair and a black shirt, and he was last seen running out of the mall. So by all accounts, that active shooter has left the mall, and that's why they've locked down everything around here, and they've stopped the football game, the Burlington High School football game, and evacuated that stadium, not taking any chances while that suspect is on the loose. And that's the very latest that I've got from live from His Place Church right across from the mall, guys.
Hey, stay here with us really quickly, Gary. We just wanted to let you know that from the Skagit County Department of Emergency Management, they've just tweeted out, they say, secure building, investigate, track down the shooter. These are the next steps. This is the drawback of Twitter, that things are so brief that sometimes they're not very clear. But our understanding is that they, at least securing the building, they have a handle on. It certainly looks like it with all of those police cars there, that they've at least surrounded the building. But you're saying that they are still in the process of sweeping it right now. Is that right?
Well, they've done a primary search. They've had multiple teams do a primary search, and you can imagine that mall is pretty enormous. They had one crew go through all of the AMC's theaters separately. They had one crew go through through all the stores on the west side, one crew go through all the stores on the east side of the mall. And what we heard from the command post was that command wanted everyone involved to re-sweep that entire mall from the front to the back, so they could not only find out, you know, evidence, get place settings, what are they looking at in terms of people who may have not been accounted for or hiding in places. We were hearing multiple reports of people who locked themselves down during the lockdown in dressing rooms. In fact, we heard one report that 3 shoppers in the Victoria's Secret were still in there and they were too afraid to come out. So you can imagine, you hear active shooter lockdown, somebody knocks on the door, identifies themselves as police. You might not believe what you hear. That's what they're going through right now, trying to get those people accounted for and get them all into one place. We understand, now, having covered mall shootings before, there's a great deal of debriefing that's going to have to happen. And once they get all of those people, the survivors in here, and rest assured, you could call some of those victims too, very, very traumatic what they've been through, whether they saw the shooting or not, even if they were in the lockdown, they're going to try and get their account of everything that they saw and heard, everybody they saw come and go. And all of that is going to be extremely important as this investigation develops.
Hey, Gary, can I ask you one other question? Because what is still an unknown right now is exactly how many people were shot and what condition they're in. We know that it's at least 4, right, but they were talking about perhaps attending to other people's injuries. Have you seen or heard any ambulances screaming away from the area recently?
No, that's the disturbing part. We have not seen any rescue vehicles, first responder vehicles. It's been all police, and they are still coming here. You know, we, in the reporting side of things, we call it running code. When we see officers running code in their patrol vehicles going very, very fast. That's, priority one. And they're coming from all parts of this state to try and lend support here. But I haven't seen any ambulances coming here or leaving. In fact, we pan in just a little bit. You can see vehicles moving around inside there. I am not sure, and here's something that I personally am trying to figure out, because we've got a mall shooter, and Jesus Villas-Hermosa needs to answer a question like this, Monique and Steve. When you have an active shooter in a mall and you're not sure if the mall is contained or not, I'm not sure how you get first responders in there. They do school drills, and they drill for these kind of things where they can tend to victims right away, while SWAT teams and members of law enforcement can go in there and get their backs. But we saw the tweet from Trooper Mark Francis so early on that there were 4 confirmed fatalities in this mall situation, and I have not heard of a single other instance of somebody who was shot who needed attending, who was heading to the hospital. In fact, we haven't heard any information about anybody being conveyed to the hospital with gunshot wounds. So this may be contained to the 4 people Henry Rossoff described before. And Henry told us there was a little bit of ambiguity here, that there was an off chance that maybe that report was premature, and maybe they were praying that at least 2 of them were going to pull out and make it. So at this point, we're dealing with a very fluid situation, and information obviously is solid gold right now. That's what we're trying to get, is confirmed information, and it's in short supply even for law enforcement when they're dealing with chaos on the inside. They're trying to create a grid here and make a linear situation so they can actually get some sort of structure and give us good information. And as soon as I find that out, I'll relay that to you. But so far, we've only heard of 4 shooting victims inside that Macy's.
All right, Gary, thank you. Stand by. We're going to get back to you in just a moment. We will tell you, however, that we have understood from the hospital that at least 1 person has been taken to the hospital, and now this is just coming into us, and this is a photograph of a person who is believed to be the suspect in this shooting.
And it's interesting, Steve, because we just heard from Gary that the description that was given, 20 to 25, Hispanic, light complexion, 5'8 to 5'9, but long black hair was what they also said. This young man seems to have, maybe it's the blurriness of the image, perhaps it's pulled back in a ponytail or something like that, but we have been given this image. It looks like surveillance video from inside the mall. This is a person that they want to track down. They want to know who he is, where he is, and what he is doing right now.
The black T-shirt is one of the things that Gary mentioned specifically about the description, and now we can see this person, again, looking to be about in the right age. Obviously difficult to tell about ethnicity at this point. Tough to tell his height as well, but the black T-shirt certainly is there, and it is quite frankly almost amazing that police have been able to gather that quickly from inside the mall this picture, which leads then us to believe that there is video certainly from inside the mall, perhaps any number of angles that this shooting may have been captured upon. And in that case, this whole situation now grows, as we've said before, almost exponentially if you have video of this, what appears to be at this point a random shooting with 4 people killed inside the Cascade Mall in Burlington. And
we have just gotten it confirmed, as we had heard earlier, that this definitely did happen inside the Macy's, inside the Cascade Mall. KIRO 7's Gary Horker is over at this church where survivors were taken after the attack, and he has more information for us now, Gary.
I do. I know a little bit more about how they were able to expedite that picture and get that on the air here. About 40 minutes ago, they tried to get the Macy's manager, who was not on site, into the inside of the perimeter, because he had to go into what they call a surveillance room in the Macy's, in a secure room, and unlock, give them some sort of code to give them access to that surveillance. What we understand happened next is that they looked at that surveillance and that they saw a lot of images of tons of people running out. But at that point, they could not get a very good description of the suspect because there were so many people giving so many different accounts of what they happened, what they saw. Obviously, if you put yourself in their position, if you hear gunshots, you're going to run the other way. You might not stick around too long to get a very good, accurate suspect description. But they were able to get enough commonalities with enough eyewitness information that they were able to isolate that particular camera and give us that image. But it's a chaotic amount of information on that surveillance because what I've heard is that as soon as and we may be able to get that surveillance in time, but as soon as the gunshots rang out, according to the people who were looking at the surveillance, there were hundreds of people running through camera view, running through the frame, trying to get out of the store. And obviously we know now the person with the gun, the assailant, was one of them. So obviously it's very important that people try and figure out who that person is, identify him, and call 911 as soon as you figure out who that person was who came in to Cascade Mall sometime tonight and shot 4 people, at least 4 of them.
Gary, take a look up above you and around the mall. You mentioned earlier the helicopter that you saw within the area with the FLIR side scanning radar. There is a chopper. We also have Chopper 7 in the area as well. But do you get the sense that that search from the air is expanding, or is that still pretty much centered on the mall area?
No, well, here's the way this happened. As soon as the Border Patrol helicopter, which is a very sophisticated piece of equipment, got here, the first thing that they did was they looked all around the top of the mall, the rooftop, to see if there were any hot spots there. And then they were trying to track through all of the brushy areas, the blackberry bramble, the bushes outside, to see if there was any movement there. And I understand that law enforcement was in communication with the people looking at that FLIR camera, because what that FLIR camera sees is a heat signature. So if you run through the parking lot, your body warmth actually will warm that parking lot to the point where they can see your footprints going away. That's how sophisticated that thing is. They also have a tractor beam. In fact, you're looking at that live right now. That helicopter with the tractor beam, we understand, is that federal chopper right there. They were also tracking a number of reports of people fitting that description in different neighborhoods here. But I believe that they've broken off that search, and that's why they're probably, I'm just totally guessing here, they could be within like a quarter mile of the mall, and they're doing concentric circles, looking around for maybe individuals hiding in brush, and that's, if they find somebody there, that's what police would check out next.
So a helicopter version of a grid search, not that they're actually bearing down on a suspect, is your feeling at this point?
Right. That's exactly the case here.
Okay, thank you so much, Gary Horker. We know you're going to work to get even more information. KIRO 7's Henry Rossoff, also just outside the mall. He's been reporting for us for the last 45 minutes or so, and you have something new for us, Henry. You had to move just a moment ago because police asked you to back up. Is that right?
Yeah, we're significantly farther back, but some positive news. Police seem to be making progress in confirming that the mall area is secure. Last time I checked with you guys, they were only able to report that they did their very quick sweep to see if the active shooter was inside, try and stop the active shooter. When they didn't encounter anyone, after about 45 minutes to an hour, they were finally able to get paramedics and search teams in and try to attend to the shot, the injured, and unfortunately that's when they came upon and found that 4 people had died. What we know now is that this mall is completely secure, and what they're doing at this point is doing that grid search in an area away from the mall, as Gary described. So there's no frantic search effort going on in the mall right now. They're kind of in recovery mode at this point, trying to attend to the victims and those trapped inside the mall. No update yet on how many people are inside. We haven't seen very many people come and go, move in and out of the mall, so perhaps they're making a good amount of progress in getting people out and debriefing and getting any additional information about this shooter as they continue to run this grid search for the shooter. We're going to move off now. You can see just some of the very heavy personnel or heavy military-style police personnel that are on the scene. You can see that officer in full camouflage body armor with an assault-style weapon came in what looks like a personal vehicle, and there you see the Washington State Patrol come on by and drive through. So this really was one of those, as you might expect, all-hands efforts where every available law enforcement officer in the region came from home with whatever they had.
Henry, let me jump in because we are showing at the bottom of the screen now what has been confirmed by Washington State Patrol. We showed you the photograph just a moment ago. The person they believe is the suspect. We can now tell you that WSP confirms that there is, they believe, just one shooter, and that person is armed with a rifle. That person is a young man between 20 and 25 years old, they believe of Hispanic descent. 5'8" to 5'10" tall, with messy hair, dark hair, and maybe most importantly, if we can get that photograph back up, a black T-shirt that made him stand out in the piece of the photograph from the security camera video inside the mall that investigators were able to find very quickly after this incident and get to all of us so we can get it to you. And they are telling you to be on the lookout for this person.
That speaks to the urgency of this, clearly. This happened about 2.5 hours ago, but they have already been able to get us this image to really focus down and find this guy. As you can imagine, and Gary Horker was just talking about quite a panic situation with people as soon as they heard those gunshots trying to get the heck out of that mall, the shooter among them. And so they had to go through that surveillance video and really pinpoint this guy. The turnaround is pretty remarkable in just 2.5 hours, and it does speak to the urgency with which authorities want some help finding him. Hopefully we're going to get that picture back up in just a moment because they are looking for him. They are hoping that somebody out there will recognize him and be able to identify him so that they can locate him. Gary Horker just showing us just a few moments ago that a Border Patrol helicopter was up there actually with a FLIR camera trying to find the heat signature of people who are moving around in that area. They mentioned a couple of times that they have secured the mall. There may be some misconception about what that means as we look at the suspect that they're looking for. Again, as they say, a State Patrol, one shooter armed with a rifle who hit at least 4 people. We know that there have been fatalities. We don't know how many. But they are, again, looking for this young man. They don't know where he went. And they are certainly hoping that all you at home are taking a good look at this and trying to help them figure out who he is. 20 to 25, light complexion, 5'8" to 5'9", with that black shirt. Certainly wish the image could be a little clearer so we could see what was actually on that shirt. But the last time that a witness reported seeing him, they said that he was moving west out of the mall and toward I-5. But again, that was 2.5 hours ago. Who knows where he is right now?
You know, in a situation like this, as we said, we're coming up on 2.5 hours since this shooting occurred, and you're trying to get information to all of you out there, and we know you understand that this is a painstaking process certainly for investigators and for our reporters on the scene to get it to you, but that is our duty. That is why we are on the air nonstop here. But I just found this absolutely amazing. If you can come back out on camera, guys, I just want to show this. We have these on the desk, these small computers. This is the size of this screen. I just decided to look back at recent mass shootings. Oh. One full page, and that's just the month of September of 2016. A full entire page on this computer screen is covered with mass shootings of just September 2016. And now, at the very top of that list, is Burlington, Washington. And so far, 4 people confirmed by Washington State Patrol dead in the shooting at Cascade Mall. It is hard to believe that these continue, and yet we should not be surprised because we are reporting on them, it seems, virtually every couple of days or so.
It is so common that it sounds callous, but it is not. Sometimes you forget some of these incidents because they come so quickly that the list is so long. Obviously, we had an incident this summer in Mukilteo where several people were shot. Different situation there, but mass casualty, and really that is unfortunately the common thread of sorrow in all of this. But when we are talking about mall shootings, clearly this is not the first mall shooting here in the Northwest. 4 years ago, there was a deadly shooting rampage at a mall south of Portland. The gunman there, Jacob Roberts, he opened fire at the Clackamas Town Center. That was in December of 2012, and he killed 2 people, wounded 1 more before he ultimately took his own life.
We are also just about a week away from the first anniversary of the shooting at Umpqua Community College. That happened on October 1st, 2015 at the UCC campus near Roseburg, Oregon. Chris Harper Mercer, a 26-year-old enrolled at the school, fatally shot an assistant professor and 8 students in a classroom. Several others were injured.
And of course, we remember in October of 2014 this horrible scene when a student shot 5 classmates, killing 4 of them. That was at Marysville-Pilchuck High School, which really is not too far away from Burlington. They're kind of neighbors there. And the teenage shooter there, Jalen Freiberg, then turned the gun on himself. He killed himself as well. Again, we are looking for a suspect right now. Lone shooter, they now believe, who is armed with a rifle.
And Henry Rossoff has been very close by to where this is all happening, on the grounds of the mall, near where the police have established an HQ, a headquarters there. Henry, what's the latest that you're seeing?
I want to take you right to a live picture. That's a photographer for the sheriff's office up here, walking around, shining a flashlight into every car parked and left at the parking lot, taking pictures, making notes of license plates. This is, in fact, them looking and trying to make sure or see if the shooter's car is still parked here and see if that can provide them any additional evidence. So this investigator's task, he's now hidden behind the sheriff's vehicle, so we'll just bring you back to me live, is to document all of the cars left parked here in the parking lot. I can also give you some perspective as far as the last known direction of travel of this active shooter. So the mall's right behind me. You can see the Macy's over my shoulder. We're actually going to go in this direction here. So when they say he was rushing toward the highway's right there. So I know you've been getting some perspective overhead, but from the ground you can see for someone to run from the building to the highway right there, that's really not a stretch for this guy to have done. The difficult part would be to cross the highway. It involves going over a fence, a gully, and then of course both directions of travel on the highway. So getting across the highway would be the difficult part if indeed he did flee to that direction and was able to make it. Giving you another live look now at Washington State Patrol. I want to tell you something that the trooper told me when we were briefed at this point about a half hour ago. He said he wasn't sure how quickly or not quickly to expect a photograph of the suspect. Of course, we do have this photograph that we're showing you now, and hopefully it leads to a capture, arrest, or at least a tip that's useful to law enforcement. But you guys know from covering crime-related stories, and this certainly a crime-related story of a horrible kind, how slowly sometimes investigators turn over images, and that's why the trooper was kind of hedging as far as when he expected us to see some image from all the mall security cameras that we know are inside there. This is an incredibly quick turnaround, and that speaks to just how urgent the nature of this is to find this one suspected active shooter. I'll get out of the way and show you some more images here, but speaks to the urgent nature of trying to find this one suspected active shooter. And they're still poring over images, and I would not be surprised if we're seeing that one image released, that we would not see 2 or 3 more released in short order. And in fact, as soon as I get off the air with you guys, I'm going to go over and ask troopers to see if there's anything else we might be able to share with everyone watching at home.
Yeah, hopefully that image will lead to an identity of this young man, and hopefully we'll get clearer images so people can keep their eyes out for him. Henry, we should mention that we have also heard from Harborview Medical Center here in Seattle that they have received 1 patient in critical condition from that scene. They are, of course, the premier trauma center in the region, and 1 of the victims has been taken there for treatment.
We also have a statement now from Governor Jay Inslee on tonight's shooting in Burlington, and I'll read to you the statement. Tragedy has struck in Washington tonight. Our hearts are in Burlington, where a shooter has taken the lives of at least 4 people. Many questions remain, but our state patrol and local law enforcement are on the scene, working swiftly to locate and clear the area. As you're looking at live pictures from Chopper 7, we continue. Trudy and I send our condolences to the families of the victims and prayers for anyone injured. We urge residents to heed all safety and detour warnings. Stay close to your friends and loved ones as we await more information and hopefully news of the suspect's capture. Those are the words from Governor Jay Inslee in just the last 5 minutes.
And we should also point out that as the governor was probably composing that statement, thinking with a heavy heart about it, that we do not know whether 4 have been killed yet. We're still waiting confirmation from that. We know there have been at least 4 victims, but there is hope being held out that some of those victims are indeed survivors, perhaps one that just arrived at Harborview Medical Center.
This is Cairo 7 breaking news.
At 9:35 here in Seattle and in the Pacific Northwest, you are watching live coverage here on Cairo 7, all of our digital media platforms, as well as Facebook Live, as we continue to follow the breaking news of an active shooter situation at the Cascade Mall in Burlington, Washington. That's 65 miles north of Seattle, directly up Interstate 5. 4 people killed in the mall, that according to Washington State Patrol. And our news crews are on the scene and bringing you the very latest information from what State Patrol is telling us to what the survivors may have to say, as our Gary Horker is standing by awaiting their arrival at a church just across the way from the mall.
And this is the scene that Chopper 7 is showing us of that mall right now, which is just off of I-5. You can see all of the responders there as they have secured that mall and swept it twice. Hopefully, very soon here, we'll be able to show you the image of the suspect that authorities say that they are looking for right now. They want you to see this young man to help identify him and figure out where he is right now. Again, he is described as being 20 to 25, light complexion, possibly Hispanic, 5'8" to 5'9", black hair, and that black T-shirt. They were able to get this image of him as he was leaving the mall in the middle of the crowds as the chaos broke out. They turned it around pretty quickly here in 2.5 hours to get the image out.
They believe he is the only shooter. They believe he is armed with a rifle, as they have seen in the video there. We will continue to follow this story on Cairo 7, and again, all of our platforms. Our reporters are on the scene. We'll be reporting live all evening long and on Cairo 7 at 11.
For continuing coverage of this breaking news, stay with Cairo 7 News on mobile, online, and on air. This is Cairo 7 breaking news.
And we continue our breaking news coverage of this mass shooting at the Cascade Mall in Burlington. We know right now that there have been at least 4 victims. Early on, State Patrol said that 4 people had been killed. We are hearing also of at least 1 victim arriving at Harborview Medical Center in Seattle in critical condition. Also, another hospital that is closer to that original location. We are also hearing that more of the survivors have been taken. Actually, news conference coming to us right now.
Behind us. We've got 1 female who's at the local hospital with non-life-threatening injuries, and we have a male who I believe is being airlifted to Harborview with critical, most likely life-threatening injuries. You guys received the picture that was from video from inside the mall. That was a still photograph that was put out to the media. That is the shooter. We believe it is just 1 shooter. He was armed with a long gun. We're not giving specifics as far as caliber or type of gun at this point.
Can you? We joined you just a little bit late. Could you start the run?
We will attempt to get that fixed very, very quickly.
As far as injuries are concerned, we've got 3 females deceased here at the mall. 1 female with what's considered non-life-threatening injuries. She's at a local hospital. And then we have a male who's, I believe, being airlifted to Harborview at this time with what is considered life-threatening injuries.
Can you give us an idea of their ages?
I don't. I've heard anything from mid-20s to elderly, and but I haven't been able to confirm exact ages.
Are they related?
I don't know if they're related. They were found in Macy's.
Was this a targeted attack on these women?
Don't know that yet. So again, this is how it goes. You secure it. You look for the bad guy, and then the detectives start doing their investigation. So as they do their investigation, that's when we'll find more about motive, more about why he did this.
Do you have any idea how long he was inside the Macy's? If he made it to any other stores? If he was going in any particular?
I don't have a time frame.
What of the search for the shooter? Can you tell us any additional information about that?
Obviously, we're going to keep that pretty close, but we are still actively looking for the shooter. Again, caution people: stay indoors, stay secure. If you see something, say something, but definitely stay locked down in your houses until we can get this guy caught.
We know that we're really close to I-5. Can you talk about that area, where we are and where he may have been since he left on foot?
Obviously, don't know where he may have been. We are close to I-5. This is a pretty rural part of Washington, so there's a lot of places to run to. There's a lot of houses. It's a big commercial area to the east of us, so there's spots for him to go.
Were you able to, we know there was a very specific call that he may have been trying to break into or get into a house. Were you able to chase that down? Did that in fact happen?
No. So again, when something like this happens, you're going to get a lot of phone calls. You're going to get a lot of bogus 911 calls. Now it's a matter of us tracking down which ones are legitimate and which ones are bogus. Don't know if that one was legitimate or not.
What about the call where the person claimed to have been?
Same thing. We're tracking those down as well. Again, trying to decide what is legitimate and what is not.
Have you found his car? We see officers going around searching.
No, not that I've been made aware of.
Anything on motive behind this attack?
No, not yet.
And you released one photograph. Do you think you might have more to release where we can get a better picture of him?
That's the best one of the ones I was given two. That was the one with the best image of the shooter.
Can you at all describe his demeanor throughout the store? What witnesses were saying he said?
I don't know. I didn't watch the video. I just received the still photographs.
And I'm assuming there's
reports he's been pulled up across I-5 here, just west of here.
No, I haven't heard that.
So someone called you guys claiming to be the shooter?
I believe there's been a couple phone calls.
Any idea what that person said?
No. Again, we're going to keep that one close and try and investigate it as to its veracity.
I realize you may not be prepared to say it, but do you guys have an idea of who the shooter is?
As far as name, I don't know. I haven't received that yet. But that photo is who the shooter was.
And you have no motive at this time?
Correct.
Of course, the shooter.
Yeah. Oh, we might, but again, that might be something that we're just keeping close. But again, this stuff it's going to take a while to get out there. We'll be putting out press releases. Follow Department of Emergency Management on Twitter. They'll be putting out releases. So anything you don't hear from me, it'll come out through press releases.
Can you give us an idea, and people who live in the area, of the time frame of how long they can expect to see the mall taped off, this much police presence?
Obviously, it's time. With an active threat out there, you're probably going to be seeing a lot of police activity. If we get that threat neutralized, then we'll do our investigative work, and you'll probably see less and less of us.
We can see a blurry image or a blurry picture on the image on the shirt. Any idea what that image is on the shooter?
No, don't know.
Can you describe what the officers are doing inside right now?
Yeah, so originally I believe that EMS was going in. They still hadn't completed their entire exhaustive search of the mall. So they're finishing up that search as we speak, and then they'll go through and do their secondaries after that. Correct, yeah. It's a crime scene.
Can you talk about how many agencies, how many officers might be here?
Don't know the number of officers, but numerous agencies everywhere from federal to local city agencies.
Was he targeting women specifically? It seems the majority of the victims were women, the 3 fatalities, and the one person in critical.
Again, no motive.
Okay, did you say all of the victims were found in Macy's?
No, so 3 of the, correct. As to my knowledge, 4 of the victims were found in Macy's. I believe all 5 could have been found in Macy's, but originally I was told 4, so I assume all 5, but I haven't confirmed that yet.
When you say victims, you mean fatalities or the injuries or both?
Both. 5 injured total. 3 that were fatal. 1 that's probably going to be fatal, and then 1 that's non-life threatening.
Wait, can you go over those numbers one more time?
Yep. So 5 total victims. 3 that are deceased here at Macy's. 1 that is at the hospital, male, who more than likely will pass away, and then a female with non-life threatening injuries.
Thank you, Trooper.
Thank you.
So just to recap here for everyone, that was a briefing from Trooper Mark Francis with Washington State Patrol. 4 women, 1 man. The 1 man is in critical condition, likely to not make it, as Trooper Francis just said. And then 3 women shot and killed, their bodies still inside the Macy's. At least 4 of the victims found inside the Macy's. Perhaps the 5th one was there as well. No idea what the image on that shirt that we're seeing the active shooter suspect wearing. There is still an ongoing search. They say they are positive that the image they have been showing us is, 1, the best image that they have available to them and have passed along to the public, and 2, they are positive that it is certainly the shooter described as a Hispanic male, and we've been broadcasting that description throughout. So we're going to get our bearings here and try to talk to some more people as they leave the scene here, but we know that this will be an active crime scene investigation for some time.
Henry, we know you have work to do to get more information, but sorry, we joined that press briefing a little bit late. Wondering if you can clear up for us the 5 victims, 3 killed, 1 injured, 1 critical. And he said, as you mentioned, he said, this is the shooter. Usually we hear from investigative agencies, this is a person of interest, when they are sure this is a shooter. Is that because he was identified by the woman who was injured but not critically? Do we know that?
Don't know the source of that confidence, but you are right to point out, Monique, that it is different to hear a law enforcement source not even mince words even a little bit, say we believe this is the shooter, or we think this is the shooter, or this is likely the shooter. Did not mince words. He said, this is the shooter, this is who we are looking for. We don't know why that confidence, and perhaps I can go about trying to get some clarification on that, but obviously with a mall you have a lot of video, and perhaps the video made it quite clear who the shooter is. And again, this is the clearest image they have of the shooter. Just moving off to show you some of what's happening now. We don't want to miss any major investigative live picture updates that are happening. It looks like we have the ATF, my photographer's telling me, arriving on the scene to begin investigating this. We don't know if that means that they are hedging against the possibility of explosive devices, or perhaps just being here as part of a standard array of resources available for a mass shooting investigation. We did see heavy canine presence as well, so certainly all the resources that this county and this region has to offer coming to bear here at the Cascade Mall in Burlington.
All right, Henry. And literally in that picture just behind you, we're seeing 4 different agencies right there. Stanwood Police, Washington State Patrol, the Sheriff's Office there in Burlington, all on scene, along with the federal authorities, FBI and ATF, as you just said. All right, Henry, thanks. We'll give you a chance to go get some more information. Great reporting there. The headline out of all this is exactly what has been talked about here for about the last hour or so, that where the first word we got was 4 fatalities. Plain and simple. And then they began hedging that just a little bit, saying perhaps that number will go down. And so far, that is the situation, with now officially 3 deceased and 1, a man brought to Harborview Medical Center here in Seattle, the trauma level 1 trauma unit, best in the West as far as we're concerned here in this area. Perhaps not likely to make it, but there is a chance. And there is 1 person who has non-life-threatening injuries, and that likely the one that we got confirmation from the hospital in Burlington earlier this evening, the 1 person brought there. So now we're up to 5. What we haven't heard yet, if there are any others still inside that may be wounded and may be attended to, we're getting also more information about survivors.
That's right, and we know that this was a very crowded mall when this all happened. We also know that some of the survivors are being taken to His Place Church on Pease Road and Burlington Boulevard, where our Gary Horker is right now. Gary, are you seeing those people arrive?
Yeah, the first few people, relatives of the survivors, are here, and one of them is Victor Solano. And Victor's brother was working in the mall?
Yeah, he was working in the mall at TJ Maxx.
And you were describing to me before the heart-rending moment when you heard there was an active shooter. You know you've got a family member in there. You could not get any information. You couldn't get a hold of him.
No, he usually leaves his phone in his locker, so he doesn't carry his phone while he's working, so I couldn't get in contact with him. I was just worried. I didn't know what was going on, really. I just saw a bunch of cops pull up, and I just went over there right away.
And they didn't let you in, huh?
I tried to ask them to find out what was going on, but they just told me I couldn't be there and I had to go park somewhere else.
This place, you've lived here for a while?
Oh, yeah.
Tell me about, Burlington is kind of a quiet place.
It is.
Tell me what goes on in your heart when you know that there were people shot tonight, some fatally, in Macy's, in your quiet town.
Well, it's just really shocking. I wouldn't expect that from this town, It's small, it's quiet. It's just really shocking.
At some point, you're going to get your brother here.
Yes.
What's the first thing you're going to do when you see him?
Probably give him a hug. Yeah.
Overdue hugs. A lot of them are going to be happening. A lot of relieved people are going to be seeing their relatives for the first time. Workers and shoppers are going to be dropped off here, and Victor Solano is going to be one of them. There are a few more over here, and they're going to be reunited with the people they love. Many people relieved that they're going to find out that their loved ones are okay, but obviously we got to keep our hearts, our thoughts, and everybody's prayers with the 5 people right now who are going to get the most devastating news they're ever going to hear.
Gary, I see
and
Victor
that
is walking
news
away
is probably unfolding right now.
Yeah, Gary, I see Victor is kind of walking away from you. I was just wondering, has he now made contact with him via telephone in any way, shape, or form? Did his brother tell him what he saw inside the mall, or did he just rush out?
You asked very good question, Steve, and I'm going to relay that. Victor, did you talk to your brother yet?
No, I have not talked to him yet, no.
But how'd you know to come here?
I saw on the Skagit breaking news, they were saying that they were going to transport people here.
Yes, okay. So, and it's been all over social media as well as police Twitter. Trooper Mark Francis told all of the survivors, relatives, the shoppers, the people working in the mall, that this is the place where they're going to finally bring everybody together. So, obviously, when he talks to his brother, it's going to be the first time since this news broke. So you're dealing with a pretty emotional situation here, Steve.
All right, Gary, thanks. I appreciate it. We don't mean to, pry, but again, we're trying to get the story here and see if he has heard anything at all. At least he knows his brother's going to be on one of those buses and be at that church within probably a matter of moments.
Boy, you could see him, though, shaking his leg and looking at his phone. And
relieved.
Can't imagine just the wait for him to be able to put his eyes and arms around his brother for himself as we continue coverage of this mass shooting now from Burlington, and authorities continue to look for the suspect. We cannot show his picture enough because they are still looking for him. Hopefully we will bring it up soon. As we have it confirmed that 3 people have been killed there at the Cascade Mall. 1 person is at Harborview Medical Center in Seattle in critical condition. Things do not look good for that victim. And we have 1 female victim with non-life-threatening injuries who's at a local hospital in Skagit County, who's being attended to right now. You can imagine what a horrible and traumatic event she's been through, but she's going to be a very important witness for authorities to talk to tonight as Chopper 7 shows us the scene.
Just about 3 hours ago, this happened. Right around 7 o'clock, the first call came in that there was a shooter in the mall. You heard Sergeant Mark Francis from the Washington State Patrol say that people scattered when the shots were fired. They were running in all directions, and it is presumed that the shooter, who we've seen in that photograph with the black T-shirt on, also moved out with any number of those people who were heading for the exits. We saw from these pictures, Chopper 7 captured these just a while ago. All of the exits, it appeared, were covered by police awaiting the complete search of the mall. This is the message from Governor Inslee tonight. Tragedy has struck in Washington. Our hearts are in Burlington, where a shooter has taken the lives of at least, now we know 3 for sure, but very likely will move to 4 people before this evening is out. We pray that it doesn't. Many questions remain, but our State Patrol, local law enforcement are on the scene working swiftly to locate the shooter and clear the area.
He goes on to say, Trudy and I send our condolences to the families of the victims. Prayers for anyone injured. We urge residents to heed all safety and detour warnings. Stay close to your friends and loved ones as we await more information and hopefully news of the suspect's capture. The governor there trying to put into words kind of the despair that people are feeling tonight, especially in that area as we go through a mass casualty shooting once again.
Put into words what is very, very hard to describe
Yes.
and almost impossible to understand how these things happen. And yet, as we mentioned a moment ago, an entire computer page filled with just 1 month in this country of what are being considered mass shootings. Now we have one again here in Washington. This is the suspect. This man, about 5 feet 8 inches tall, weighing about, well, no weight given at this point, but dark hair and a dark T-shirt and carrying a long gun, as we heard from officers from the Washington State Patrol.
As we continue to get out that picture to people, so hopefully this shooter can be located. Gary Horker is now talking to people who are hearing from their relatives who survived. Let's listen in.
Could you talk about what she said about that?
Just from what I heard is she talked to her grandma a little bit ago, who contacted me and said that I guess they locked themselves in the bathroom there, and yeah, so I'm not sure what happened after that. I haven't talked to her, so.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
Where did she work?
She works at Regis.
Regis.
Mm-hmm.
Regis Hair Salon, huh? Wow. So you're down here to meet up with her once she gets out of there. She's still in the mall.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. She said that they won't let him leave. So.
What's been going on for you? You know, getting that phone call. It must have been kind of frantic.
Yeah. Not a call that you would expect to get. So.
And how are you feeling right now?
Just anxious. Right. We're ready to see her.
How old is she?
32.
She's 32, okay.
And it's Michelle Fuller.
Yes.
MICHELLEFULLER.
Yes.
Okay.
What's your daughter's name?
It's Larissa.
Larissa.
My niece.
But it's niece.
Mm-hmm.
Niece. I'm sorry, niece.
Hearing now the reporters are Gary Horker, kind of leading the way there with questions, and now they're just getting all the detailed information from one of the family members awaiting, I believe she said it was her daughter, who was going to be returning there to the church just across Interstate 5 from the mall there, the site of the shooting tonight. 3 confirmed dead, 1 in very, very critical condition at Harborview, with the expectation that, in all likelihood, won't make it, a male. These, again, pictures from Chopper 7 from just a little bit earlier this evening, and you can see the enormous police presence, EMTs, fire, and again, agencies from all around the region. One of the things, and we talked about the number of mass shootings, and as Jesus Villahermosa was on with us earlier in the evening for about the first hour and 15 minutes that we were on the air, he is an expert in these mass shootings and how to investigate them and how to prepare yourself and perhaps save yourself in these situations. And we all remarked at what happens when these situations occur is that law enforcement from the region come. This is something they have practiced for. I would bet that they have practiced inside that mall this very situation. How would they go about examining, searching, locking off areas of the mall in case of an active shooter situation? And their training tonight, unfortunately, did not get them there in time to perhaps save 3 people, but they have gotten a picture out of a suspect that they believe fired the shots, and it is out all over the region now.
That's right. And Jesus was saying that, unfortunately, because this has become so common, their training has actually updated over the years as they have learned more about what their response should be. Here is the picture that they actually gave us not too long ago from surveillance cameras inside Macy's. This is the shooter, they say. That is who State Patrol said unequivocally, this is the shooter. This is the young man that they are looking for. 20 to 25, possibly Hispanic, light complexion, 5'8" to 5'9", with that black shirt and what was described as messy black hair. They are looking for that young man. The last time that a witness reported seeing him was right after the shooting as he exited the mall and headed west toward I-5. Now, that could mean anything. Clearly, there's a highway there. If there was some sort of vehicle that he was heading to, who knows where he is right now. But that is why it is so important that this picture is out there, that they turned it around so quickly so that hopefully they can put an identity, a name, and ultimately, most importantly, a location to this shooter and get a hold of him.
Certainly, law enforcement, their first priority to get to this person. The priority for the families of those who were inside the mall at the time, employees, and as we heard from Henry, the place was packed. It's a Friday evening, lots of young people, we're certain, in there, as all young people do, go to the mall. And that's probably what they did tonight, not ever believing that someone would walk in with a long gun and start firing. Our Gary Horker is standing by at the church very nearby, where the families of those workers and survivors are standing by, waiting for their loved ones to show up. And Gary, you've already given us a little bit of a sense for talking to some of those family members, their fear and their relief in what they know now.
You're hearing that story a lot. We talked to Victor about 5 minutes ago. Just talked to a woman named Michelle. Just imagine, put yourself in this position, folks. The cell phone rings. You can't get it. There's a voicemail. It comes from either your daughter or your niece who's busy doing hair in the mall. That's what happened in this situation. And she has to leave a voicemail saying, I'm locking myself in a locker at the hair salon because there's an active shooter in the mall. That's what they were going through. So they followed the voicemail. The voicemail came from the landline in the Regis Hair Salon. They tried to call it back. Nobody obviously is going to pick up that landline after somebody locked themselves in the locker. But it is stories like that that is going to cause a lot of people to become very emotional once they're reunited on what was just going to be just an ordinary, placid Friday night. People go to work at the mall, people go and shop at the mall, and the way it's going to end is going to be a lot of people making that emotional connection and totally relieved to see that their family is intact and whole and healthy. And that's the situation we just talked to. A woman, her niece was doing hair, locked herself in a locker, and could not call out. Didn't have a cell phone, didn't have anything. But the aunts and the relatives are told this is going to be kind of the clearinghouse, the official point of reunification between relatives and all of the survivors, whether they're shoppers or they're workers in there. And so there's going to be a lot of traumatic moments that we're going to foresee here. I want to, Kelly Daviscourt, photojournalist, to turn around here. The situation has changed a little bit because I'm keeping my eye on two things. Obviously, that's the mall over there. So you see our perspective. The mall is probably a quarter mile away from us. That is the southwest entrance. To the left of that, there were helicopters, including that Customs and Border Patrol FLIR armed helicopter looking for a suspect on the other side of I-5, approximately where the suspect was last seen running toward. And I'm keeping an ear on that situation right now from multiple different sources and scanner frequencies. And so far, that situation has gone a little bit more quiet. Although the last thing I've heard is that they're getting a Bearcat in. For those people who don't know, the Bearcat is that armored vehicle, looks like an urban tank, only it doesn't have tracks, it has wheels. They're getting a SWAT team into a Bearcat, sending them towards that area just in case they do, in fact, run into that suspect. And so we're keeping an ear and an eye on that situation. We don't see that chopper anymore, so I'm not sure if that means that situation has changed. Right now, we just know one thing, that gunman is still on the loose. Back to you.
He certainly is still on the loose, Gary, and you're talking about these terrified, these scarred and traumatized people, and they're the lucky ones in this scenario. Those are the folks who have survived. And KIRO 7's Henry Rossoff has actually spoken to some of the survivors. Is that right, Henry?
It is, but I want to start by giving you a live look at, it's dissipated now, I apologize, but there was an FBI SWAT team that just dropped off SWAT officers right behind me. If we can go ahead and kind of move all the way to the left, you see an Eagle furniture sale and some porta potties and some flashing lights over there. I know it's a bit of a dark scene, but that's generally where police have been talking to most of the eyewitnesses that were closest to the scene, that were in the Macy's when shots rang out. They were loading them up onto a bus and taking them over to where Gary is to act, as Gary was saying, a clearinghouse for those closest to the scene. Police doing some of the most serious interviews right there, right now. Moving over to the Macy's, again, this is where at least 4 of the victims, including the 3 confirmed fatalities, were found. I talked to a manager for Macy's off camera, said he was not comfortable going on camera because he feared he would lose his job in this situation, but said they believe that all of the Macy's employees are accounted for. He said he doesn't have 100% confirmation, but he's fairly confident that all of the Macy's employees were accounted for. So that goes toward anyone who's perhaps with Gary or waiting on news to know that if you're waiting on someone who was a worker at Macy's, who was employed at Macy's that was here on this Friday night as a job, perhaps you're in the clear. Again, not police confirmation, not at that level, but according to a manager I just spoke with, the employees at Macy's were not mixed up in this. So just a little bit of new information and perhaps a little bit of relief for certain families that are waiting to find out what happened to their loved ones.
All right, Henry, thanks very much. Continue to gather as much information as you can there from your police sources and from, obviously, if any of the folks inside that mall who happened to see what was going on or at the very least heard the shooting and ran the other direction, which is what the natural reaction is unless you're a first responder, and in that case you run to the gunfire. But quite the night there this Friday evening happened just a little more than 3 hours ago now. You've been watching, by the way, live coverage along with Monique Minglaub, and I'm Steve Rabel. As we've just passed 10 o'clock, we have been live all evening long on the KIRO 7 digital platforms as well as Facebook Live, and we have been cutting into KIRO 7 television live with the various updates throughout the night. 3 confirmed dead, 1 in extremely critical condition at Harborview Medical Center here in Seattle, having been flown in via medical chopper a little earlier this evening, and 1 in a hospital in Burlington with non-life-threatening injuries. Those are the 5 so far casualties we have heard from the Washington State Patrol.
5 casualties from one man who they are still looking for right now. They've reminded people in the area, do not pick up a hitchhiker. They're also trying to get hold of folks immediately around that area in bars and so forth that are open right now on a Friday, as they normally would be, to let them know to be on the lookout for this man. And KIRO 7's Joanna Small is joining us right now. You have more information on the hunt for this shooter.
Yeah, Monique, we've sort of been following this search for the past hour or so, and as you might imagine, it's very difficult just because police have so many roads blocked off, obviously for public safety. Let me step out of the way and show you where we are. We are on Nevitt Road to give you some perspective. That really is right behind Chuckanut Drive, kind of one of the main thoroughfares that runs through Burlington. Police have just recently put up the blockade. You can see that black SUV, but a block down on Nevitt Road. It's been blocked for quite a while. Now, when we first arrived here a little more than an hour ago, the search helicopter was circling very low. It was very loud. It was just east of the mall, then it moved west of the mall, but it's maintained that radius around the mall. It's been pretty narrow, so the search has been very contained to this area. There's little subdivisions back in here, also a lot of rural property, and police have blocked off all of those entrances. I did run into some neighbors who were sort of walking through their backyard, just kind of checking it out to make sure that there was nothing suspicious going on back there, and they told me they were listening on scanners, trying to keep track of this search for the suspect because it's obviously a very scary situation for the general public. I mean, you've all seen that picture now many, many times, and it's difficult from a blurry image with an emblem on a shirt that we can't exactly identify to be able to know exactly what we are looking for out here. But I can tell you this, there is an enormous amount of police presence. There is an enormous effort to keep people safe and to keep people updated. And really just within the last 30 minutes, we've heard less and less of that helicopter. I don't know what that means at this point, but we've seen more people on the ground, and it seems to be fewer in the air. We're going to stay here and continue to track what's going on in terms of this search for the suspect. And of course, as soon as we get updated information, we'll be checking in with you here on all of our social media platforms as well.
Joanna, before you go, as you know, and you've followed many of these stories before, there are times when you'll be reporting or you'll be gathering information and suddenly there will be literally a race of police vehicles to come down the street very, very quickly, moving to a location. Have you seen any of that in the areas where you've been tonight, rushing to a specific spot somewhere near the mall?
You know, as I was first arriving here in Burlington, Steve, we saw a lot of that, but it was difficult to tell where they were going because they were going to all different sides of the mall. But here, right now, it's quiet. Lots of flashing lights, lots of people on the ground, lots of officers from various different agencies walking around armed with rifles, but very, very quiet. And obviously that probably factors in a little bit with the tactic that they're using, but no sirens, no racing police cars within the last 30 minutes in this area.
So many emergency responders who have turned up trying to do whatever they can. They want to do something, but it sounds like it's very limited right now with the limited amount of information that they have. KIRO 7's Joanna Small, thank you for that information. We know you're going to gather much more as they continue the search for this lone shooter who, again, State Patrol came out and said, this is our guy. There's no playing around with it. There's no person of interest classification. This is our guy. He's the one we need, and that's the person that all of those emergency responders are looking for right now.
And we can tell you this is the place to stay. Just past almost 2.5 hours since we went on the air and 3 hours since this event actually happened. So we have the mall covered by our Henry Rossoff and his photojournalist. We have Gary Horker, who is standing by at the church very nearby where survivors and family members who were at the mall and have been brought out are going to be reunited with their loved ones. And then we have Joanna Small covering the law enforcement and the search. So we've got all angles of this story covered for you, and we will continue to cover live for you here on all of our digital platforms throughout this evening. One can only hope that Washington State Patrol, as you see there represented, along with the Sheriff's Department there in Skagit County, the police in Burlington, Stanwood, all are represented, all are on the search for this young man with a long rifle who walked into the Cascade Mall tonight in Burlington, firing, killing 3 people there in the mall. One has been airlifted to Harborview Medical Center in extremely critical condition, and one in the hospital, non-life-threatening injuries in Burlington.
And I imagine that person is going to be very, very important to this investigation. Clearly, that woman has been through quite a bit tonight. She has been hurt. We have heard that they are non-life-threatening injuries. But right now, it sounds like she may be the only one who is surviving this situation and able to talk to investigators right now.
And this was a very interesting point. I believe this was Henry was here at the scene at this moment when we saw a police officer walking around with a flashlight, looking into cars parked in the parking lot. One never knows what one may find if, in fact, you stumble across the car that the shooter happened to bring. How many times in other shooting situations have law enforcement agencies looked in the car and found anything from arms to possibly explosive items? And so they are doing all, again, we talked about it, they have trained, they have prepared for this. Everybody has their job in a situation like this.
And right now they are working literally and figuratively to a certain degree in the dark. As they have told us at this point, they don't know of a clear motive. So the level of desperation that the shooter has, how motivated he is to inflict harm on possibly other people, they do not know at this point. What they know is that this guy was last seen, oh goodness, it was more than 3 hours ago now, heading west out of the mall. That is the last time that they knew his whereabouts. That man right there, the picture should be all over everywhere, social media, TV, everywhere, that this is the man that they say is responsible, who opened fire with a long rifle and caused so much damage tonight at the Cascade Mall in Burlington.
Henry Rossoff, as we mentioned, is there with the police presence at the mall. Henry, are you seeing anything change there? Have you heard anything more?
We're seeing eyewitnesses slowly being allowed to return to their vehicles at this point. In fact, you can see a woman, that is actually a police officer sorting through her personal items there and continuing to investigate. Worth pointing out, for what it's worth, that it's starting to rain more steadily now, so making this already difficult and tough task for the vast number of investigators already on the scene even more difficult. But we've seen steadily over the last few minutes, the few remaining people who were cleared from the mall and interviewed by law enforcement begin to come and take their cars and be allowed to leave or be put onto a bus. In fact, we can show you the bus right back there near the SWAT vehicle, be put onto that bus and taken over to where Gary is. So it seems to be they've got the last of the non-police people who were here on the scene, hiding, eyewitnesses, people just scared and running for their lives. They seem to have gotten the last of non-law enforcement, beginning to get them cleared from the scene here, and then continuing this very difficult work of processing the scene, and the rain not really helping things. Of course, the main scene inside Macy's, though.
Henry, I just talked to Morgan Palmer, our meteorologist, just across the way from us. He said the rain probably won't last all that much longer. Although it does make you and law enforcement uncomfortable, it also makes the suspect uncomfortable in a cold rain outside,
True.
Especially if he is on the run through some of those rural areas that Joanna was just talking about a few moments ago.
Let's hope that he is within this area that they have contained. I'm sorry, Henry, were you going to say something?
No, a fair point, although we talked about a police helicopter doing a search from above, and I could see it kind of floating above I-5. We'll kind of show you the direction of I-5 over there. We were seeing a police helicopter do a search, not 15, 20 minutes ago, when it was up there for quite a while. We're no longer seeing that, but as you do say, Steve, that is a great point to make, that may, in fact, make things less comfortable for this this suspect. Although I have to say, there are several SWAT teams, and every police officer around here is wearing body armor. We're seeing a slight de-escalation in that. I really do believe that they are not concerned with him returning to this specific location or being in this area any longer than he has to be.
That's a good observation, Henry.
Yeah, and if that's the case, maybe that is just about the only location they can rule out for this guy now that we are about 3.5 hours out from when the shooting broke out at the Cascade Mall in Burlington. He was last seen heading west out of the mall, which is toward I-5. They do not know, they say, whether he was heading for a car, just running on foot. If he got into a vehicle, who knows where he is right now. I should say again that there were 5 victims, 3 of them dead, 1 critically injured at Harborview Medical Center in Seattle, 1 with non-life-threatening injuries. And State Patrol told us that they have heard about these victims, anything from their mid-20s to elderly. So this is quite a range.
This is the suspect. This is a picture pulled from the security camera video in, I believe, did not Gary say in the Macy's there? Yes. So. And as Gary explained it to us a few moments ago, it took them a few minutes, authorities, that is, law enforcement officials, to get to that video because they had to get the manager into the office there to be able to access it. Once they did, they were able to find this person, this suspect, pretty quickly. And I guess if it's somebody with a long rifle, it's not too hard to find him standing in the crowd. And then the word was that shots were fired, people scattered, and the thought is at this point, the supposition that that person, the suspect, then exited the mall with all of those other people heading for the exits, looking for safety. And now the search continues outside the Cascade Mall there in Burlington.
Chopper 7 still remaining live over that scene. Look at all of the lights. Those are all of the law enforcement who have showed up there, local, state, and federal authorities who are on this scene right now trying to track down this man. They have the mall secured. They went ahead and did a couple of sweeps of the mall, and now they are in the process of transporting people from inside the mall over to local churches where they can be reunited with their families. Nowadays, you know, so many people have cell phones that quite a few shoppers, we were told, were able to at least say, hey, Mom, Dad, I'm hiding here. But as we heard earlier from some folks who Gary Horker spoke with, when you're an employee, sometimes you have to leave your phone somewhere else. And so I'm sure there are a lot of families, loved ones of people who had jobs anywhere in that mall who are still waiting to hear from them, as those folks didn't have time or ability to get to their phones before they had to take cover, and now presumably are being transported to a safe location.
We heard Henry Rossoff mention a couple of moments ago his observation that it appeared as though things were standing down just a bit at the mall. And here's another indication from Skagit County Department of Emergency Management. It is still an active scene, but they are now saying they will allow those who have cars in the parking lot to pick them up sometime tomorrow. So they're starting to make this plan already to move ahead and to kind of de-escalate that scene, not before they're absolutely sure there is no suspect in the area, but cars in that lot can be picked up tomorrow. Right now, no car, no human being could get in or out of the Cascade Mall. You can see virtually every entrance, every exit out to the main ring road, and then the doors exiting the mall. They are all covered by law enforcement at this point.
What a horrible scene unfolded in that Macy's that just went off the screen there. Cairo 7's Gary Horker is at his place church where the survivors of this attack were taken. And Gary, some amazing reunions, I would imagine, are happening right now.
They haven't happened yet. So we're dealing with a long time And as predicted, Monique, a lot of these people, when they get out of the mall, they have to be debriefed. That means they've got to tell everything they know to a law enforcement officer. So that's what's happening now. But I can tell you, I have just learned that within the last 7 minutes, there were a ton of people, I guess, in the Target that had not been accounted for, that were still in lockdown, that did not know that this whole thing was over and had to be let out. So we may be only beginning the process of evacuating shoppers, workers, security inside there, all the people that need to get out, tell officers what they know, where they were, what they saw, what they heard. And the officers are obviously going to try and coordinate all that information to put one story together, one solid story, to find out in a linear fashion what happened here, where he fired these shots, why he did it, where he did it, and where he is now. So my best guess is that this is going to happen within the hour. What we have right now is people from Skagit County Department of Emergency Management. There are some volunteer firefighters that have come and gone here, and different people, counselors. We've seen people kind of getting ready to take people in, but we understand that this is probably going to happen within the hour. So you obviously we're going to have to be patient. That is obviously, this is where the happy endings happen. A lot of the people here are going to be embracing their loved ones, greatly relieved that their loved one is going to be among the survivors of this horrific tragedy and this incredible senseless act of violence. But that's going to take a while again. When they come out, they're going to be coming out from probably about 20 different stores, maybe more, and then they have to be debriefed by law enforcement, give them their identity, and then leave. Then think about this. There's obviously a containment scene all around the mall, and then there's a lot of cars in there. People aren't going to be able to get their cars, whatever they have in the cars, all that stuff's going to have to stay there because that entire area is now a crime scene. So this story is only beginning, folks. The law enforcement work of finding this guy is only beginning, but even if they find him at this minute, that is still going to remain a crime scene probably until well into tomorrow. So again, this is a story that's developing in progress, but we haven't seen any sign of the buses. They're going to be bringing the family and friends of the people who are waiting for the people in the mall to arrive at his church.
Well, Gary, you just spoke the magic word. We are going to take you to some live pictures of Chopper 7 and describe to you the scene of those very buses that are standing by, waiting to bring those loved ones back there to the church. Your position at his place, the corner. While we look at this, we can see again still the flashing blue lights. My guess is they won't be gone before sunrise there at the mall, because when you have an entire mall, even though everything is focused on the Macy's, it is a crime scene outside and probably all the way to that perimeter road. So the investigation and the processing of that scene will take a lot of time. I was hoping to ask Gary to use his observational powers and just let us know if, in fact, the roads appeared to be somewhat clear. Remember, we've had now admonitions from the governor and from law enforcement to stay off the roads. Don't come down to the area of Burlington, of the Cascade Mall there in Burlington. Stay away so that law enforcement and obviously EMT can get in there. That appears, that portion of the process appears to be over at this point. But I'm just wondering if people are in fact heeding, and we can see a chopper below our Chopper 7 now flying in the area. May very well be one of the law enforcement choppers there with the, as Gary again told us, with FLIR side scanning radar from the Border Patrol.
That's right, and they are scanning that entire area, have been now for hours actually, trying to find any sign or symptom of somebody who is maybe taking cover in the area just outside of the mall, outside of those buildings, and you see a lot of shrubbery and trees that clearly, I mean, it is so difficult to see right now. And as this happened at just about 7 o'clock tonight, it was dark very shortly thereafter, and that just added to the challenge in trying to trace the steps of this person who walked into the Macy's, we're told, and opened fire, hitting at least 5 people before leaving. KIRO 7's Henry Rossoff is down there in the parking lot right by the Macy's. He's had his ear to the ground as far as the investigation goes and more information on the suspect. What is the newest, Henry?
Yeah, bear with me, guys. I'm going to walk you. It might be a little awkward here up to this search helicopter. You got a pretty good look at it here. It's going to go behind the trees, and then you're going to have another really, really up-close look at it. This is as close as we've seen it to the mall. I think the last time we were communicating, we were talking about how the law enforcement search helicopter seemed to have cleared this area along I-5, and now it seems to be going pretty much parallel right on top of I-5, really searching and looking and using that spotlight to see what it can make out. But this is a bit of a change, at least within the last 5 to 10 minutes, because what we've heard for the last hour, if not hour and a half, is that this area, the area in and around the mall, along this stretch of I-5, was clear and secure, and law enforcement were not worried about this area. So this is a change from what we are seeing from law enforcement. Seem to be doing another very detailed search of the mall area. And in fact, I can see now, it's a little too far away to show you, but I can see it's circling again, making another spotlight grid search of the mall area, which is particularly interesting because we were told for a while now that the mall was secure.
Yeah, we have no idea at this point exactly what they're looking for, Henry. As we mentioned before, Gary Horker mentioned that they have the FLIR cameras on that Border Patrol chopper that should be able to pick up any heat signals. And if it's that close to the mall, clearly there are so many people around that that's not what they're relying on anymore. Otherwise, it would be picking up other folks, unless it is, again, covering those areas, those trees, those shrubs that are near I-5, which is where that suspect was last seen running toward. Henry, I'm sorry, you were about to say something.
Well, it's kind of where it was before, so we can give you another pretty decent, bear with us past our live truck light, guys. We give you another decent live look at the search helicopter. It really seems that the spotlight is shining down, so I don't think they're using any sort of thermal technology to look. I think this is a visual search, and we are reaching out, and I just sent a message to Trooper Mark Francis, who's been briefing us here on the scene, to find out why this change, and perhaps did they get some more specific intelligence that had them bring this search police helicopter back into play here. And looking at it, it may be tougher for you guys to tell, but from here you can tell it's making a wider circle now on this pass, and in fact you're losing it a little bit in the fog, so we'll bring you back down on the ground here and you can focus on me. But the circles seem to be getting wider, and it certainly seems to be a visual search, so we're reaching out to law enforcement here on the ground to find out if they got any sort of new intelligence or a tip, or if something changed in the search for this suspect.
Well, and in fact, Henry, it may be a different helicopter, because our Morgan Palmer has just been reaching out to his sources, and he's been told that is in fact a Homeland Security helicopter and not the Border Patrol chopper that we heard was overseen earlier on. So again, could very well be a different chopper.
My photographer is nodding his head. Yes, he's got the best look through that zoomed-in lens, and he says definitely a Homeland Security chopper, different from what we were seeing. So that completely lines up with what Morgan was telling you.
Well, the other thing we saw when you turned that camera toward your light is the rain coming down out there now. It appears to be coming down a little bit harder, but again, as Morgan said, it won't last all night long, but it may be a bit uncomfortable out there once again. Here is pictures from our chopper, Chopper 7, again overhead, and you see the red lights of what we believe to be the Homeland Security chopper. There it is now, a little more in view. And again, that ceiling, everything kind of closing in. No telling how high Chopper 7 is. Certainly far enough away that there's no chance of having any sort of problem with the Homeland Security chopper. But again, with everything closing in with the rain, it appears as though now we're losing a little bit of the visibility from Chopper 7.
And you can bet that they won't be moving any of those survivors and witnesses into transportation vehicles if they think that the shooter is still around. Right. We know he is still armed, or at least this is the shooter, and left with a long gun when he left the mall after having shot 5 people, killing 3 of them. putting one of them in critical condition and one with the life-threatening or non-life-threatening injuries. That person's account will be very, very important for investigators to get as she gets treatment at a local hospital. Whatever information she can give them is going to be very valuable.
And we did see them loading buses just a few moments ago there at the mall to take them to their location to meet up with loved ones at the His Place Church at Pease Road and Burlington Boulevard. There are those buses. Not known yet if any of them have actually rolled out, but we do see them there. They are going to be escorted by law enforcement to that location so that they can be reunited with their friends and family and just let everybody know that they are okay. But again, these pictures from Chopper 7 almost as we began thinking of this, there is Chopper 7 in position to get you these pictures.
And actually with Chopper 7 moving, it's hard to tell, but that is a bus that is in motion. You can see the person just behind it who's giving them some direction so that they can move. It looks to be in reverse. A big bus like that, that's no easy task. But any of those folks, they do want to get them out of the area after they have spoken with investigators and handed off any essential information before they head over to that His Place Church to be reunited with the folks who really want to lay eyes on them.
The one thing they're not doing is saying, okay, you're clear now, jump in your car and go home. Right. Those cars are going to be inside this cordoned off area, which is basically the entire area surrounding Cascade Mall, and they will be able to pick those cars up, but not until tomorrow. And one guesses that the entire parking lot will be swept. It's already being swept by law enforcement officials, just checking, looking inside. Can they see anything from looking in with a flashlight through the window? Might one of those cars be that of the suspect who walked in around 7 o'clock this evening into Cascade Mall in Burlington and opened fire with a rifle, hitting 5 people, killing 3 outright? One is in extremely critical condition, having been flown here to Harborview Medical Center, and the 5th is in hospital there in Burlington with non-life-threatening injuries.
KIRO 7's Henry Rossoff has stayed on that scene for several hours now. He's been collecting information that he can see for himself as he keeps his eye on the search helicopters there. And what do you have for us now, Henry?
Well, one of the things that we're not seeing, we talked about how there was a steady de-escalation about a half hour, 45 minutes ago in the search helicopter. This is a different one, but we hadn't seen search helicopters for quite a while. With this search helicopter here, we're still not seeing the police put that body armor back on, seem to be standing in a more tense plan of action. So you might expect the two things to go hand in hand if they have new information and they're doing any sort of searching. And I'm keeping my eye on the search helicopter because in a minute here we'll be able to give you a good picture of it, but you might expect those things to go hand in hand. If they're doing a new or renewed search here, you might expect law enforcement to perhaps tense up and, as we show you the helicopter now, and perhaps be concerned about the possibility that this shooter is here. So we're not seeing those things go hand in hand as you see the Homeland Security go around, Homeland Security helicopter go around there. You can faintly make out a search spotlight. Seems to be on the other side of I-5 that it's looking at now, and we've slowly seen this helicopter steadily make wider and wider circles around the mall. So perhaps what we've been told now going on 2 hours ago that the mall is secure is still the case, because this helicopter did very tight circles around the mall, searched on the mall itself, searched the parking lot, searched I-5, and the circle seems to be getting wider and wider and wider. So perhaps law enforcement grasping for new leads by running a visual grid search as opposed to that radar or heat-sensitive grid search we were telling you about a little bit earlier this evening.
And lest we think that all of the focus of the search and investigation is right there around the mall, we talked to Joanna Small just a short time ago, and well to the west of that mall, out near Chuckanut Drive, out in some somewhat rural areas, lots of neighborhoods, and pretty soon you keep going west, you run into Puget Sound. There are a number of police agencies represented and a lot of flashing lights out there off to the west of the mall as well, across Interstate 5. So this crime scene, while it is focused on the mall and the parking lot around it, it has expanded to the search area as far as a helicopter can get to within that radius, and searching, as well as police officers in their vehicles looking for the person who walked in to Cascade Mall tonight, opened fire with a rifle, and killed 3 people.
That's our investigators turning to us as well here in the media so that we can get the word out about this man who they say definitively was the shooter in this attack. They want his picture out there so that they can identify him and find him. They also want his picture out there for safety's sake so that anyone who is watching this might be able to identify him, but certainly do not approach him. People be on the lookout, but be very wary. Do not pick up any strangers, they said, people who might be hitchhiking in the area or even a stranger who walks into perhaps a bar on a Friday night, but be aware of what this man looks like.
Back to Henry Rossoff we go. Henry?
Well, I told you I'd try to get some answers about this helicopter that's been searching around here. I found Trooper Mark Francis. Trooper Francis, you're saying there's not any sort of renewed search for the suspect in this area or anything like that?
Nope, we are still at the mall, so we're still trying to secure every part of the mall, so they're just here for added security.
Here for added security for your guys, a lot of law enforcement on scene. How long do you think you guys will still be on scene, and what type of work is going on inside?
So finish clearing the entire building and then start the investigative process with the detectives.
So everyone's out being transported to that church or allowed to go home?
You got to search every nook and cranny to make sure because some people will hide out and shelter in place, and that's who we're looking for.
And again, you were just telling me before we went on, nothing new on the suspect, unfortunately, no new leads?
We are searching for the suspect. We have leads, but none that we're obviously putting out right now.
Okay, Trooper Francis, I appreciate the quick recap and update. So you heard it right there. This helicopter we've seen circling for officer safety as this investigation continues.
That's right. 5 people shot, 3 of them fatally, 1 fighting for his life right now at Harborview Medical Center in Seattle. Also, we know there's 1 woman at a local hospital in Skagit County who has non-life-threatening injuries. She will be a vital witness for investigators as they continue looking for this man tonight. We're going to continue staying on this story throughout the night.
This is Cairo 7 Breaking News.
And we are covering breaking news and have been since 7:30 this evening. The shooting, the murder at the Cascade Mall in Burlington, along with Monique Minglaven. I'm Steve Rabel. We have been covering live throughout the evening on all of our digital platforms and Facebook Live, as well as these news cut-ins on Cairo 7 television. The shooter is still on the loose. The search is on, but we do know that there are 3 people dead, with another just barely hanging on to life, and a 5th without life-threatening injuries at a hospital in Burlington.
This is a picture that was released by the State Patrol saying definitively this is the man who is responsible for that attack. They want to find him tonight. Cairo 7's Henry Rossoff has been in the parking lot of the Cascade Mall all evening, just in front of the Macy's where this attack happened. What can you tell us, Henry?
Well, the police officers still searching every nook and cranny, and you can see them still swarming this parking lot. In a moment here, I'm going to be able to show you a Homeland Security search helicopter that's actually been brought in, we're told, for law enforcement safety. Bear with us as we make a pan up left, and you can see the helicopter over I-5 now, but it's been circling with the spotlight, checking on law enforcement and making sure they stay safe. So if that doesn't say there's an active shooter out there that's still very much so putting the community, no less law enforcement, at risk, I don't know what does. So this helicopter keeping police officers safe as they continue the very busy work of investigating here in and around the Macy's at the Cascade Mall.
Henry, thanks very much. We continue to follow this story and will throughout the evening on all of our platforms. And again, the very latest on Cairo 7 at 11 o'clock.
For continuing coverage of this breaking news, stay with Cairo 7 News on mobile, online, and on air.
We continue to follow the breaking news here. We are online on Cairo 7, and we're glad you're all joining us. It's important that you're joining us, especially if you're in the North Sound. About an hour north, in fact, of Seattle, the town of Burlington, about 8,500 people, has been shocked tonight into the reality that mass shootings can take place in their neighborhood. And in fact, it did tonight at the Cascade Mall in Burlington. A man walked in with a rifle, fired, killing 3 people, 3 women. 1 man is in extremely critical condition at Harborview Medical Center in Seattle, and a 5th is in the hospital in Burlington without life-threatening injuries. Perhaps the only luck in this difficult evening in the North Sound.
Lots of people out there worried about all of the folks who were at the mall today. Many of them had cell phones and were able to get in touch with their loved ones and their families at this point. But we also know many did not. We were talking especially about employees at the mall who have to leave their phones in other places during their work. And just moments ago, we saw a bus that was backing up with some of the survivors who were about to be taken over to His Place Church that is nearby. I think Gary Horker said about a half a mile away or so, where they will be taken to be reunited with folks who are presumably just kind of on pins and needles, waiting to see those people and get final word that their loved ones are in fact okay. There is a bus right there that is being loaded with people. We can see somebody in the doorway right now. But it has not headed out yet for these reunions.
Washington State Patrol Trooper Mark Francis has been updating us throughout the evening, both with tweets and through email messages, as well as live there at the scene. He has been talking to our Henry Rossoff. And it is interesting to note all of the law enforcement agencies that are represented, from FBI to Sheriff's Department to police from surrounding agencies. They are all there and participating in the investigation, the search. As he said, and has said a number of times, there are a lot of nooks and crannies in a mall the size of Cascade Mall, and every one of those has to be searched, not only for the shooter, but perhaps for those who may have locked themselves in a storeroom somewhere and still have not come out because they just don't know that, at least from the sources and the police there have said, the mall has been cleared.
And as we continue to look from Chopper 7 at the scene, we're talking about the nooks and crannies inside the mall and also outside the mall, which is what those helicopters have been trying to search as they look for the suspect in this. And also, if you can imagine, there's a lot of evidence down there, but it's in the middle of this chaos. And look at the canine units that they've brought down right now, who are apparently checking some of the cars, perhaps, or maybe they're about to bring them inside the mall. We're not sure what the mission is of that canine unit and his handler.
Checking the cars,
but
and I
we
can speak
have
to that
seen,
if you want to toss.
actually, Cairo 7's Henry Rossoff is just feet away, and he's saying that they are actually checking the cars. Are they having, Henry, are they having the dogs apparently sniff or inspect the cars?
Yeah, these dogs are searching the cars. They're not going into the mall. I'm not saying they didn't have this activity in the mall. In fact, we're getting a really up-close look as the dog kind of blows by us, and there are more cars that were left in the mall on the other side of where we are positioned. So they're still doing the work of clearing cars in the parking lot and making sure that this area is secure. I also just got an update from Trooper Mark Francis, and he's telling me that there will be another briefing in approximately 1 hour. That is just an estimate. He's not even promising any new information, but he's going to go back to the headquarters behind me and try and get that new information and get us the very latest on the hunt for this suspect, this active shooter.
Henry, if I can pass along some information to you from the FBI, has just come into us here at Cairo 7. This from the FBI. At this time, FBI has no information to suggest additional attacks planned in Washington State. So we're talking about this from the standpoint of perhaps a lone shooter walking into the mall for some unknown reason at this point. But you also have to look at the macro here and say, could this be part of something else? And the FBI at this point is saying that they have no reason to believe, no information to suggest that there are any additional attacks planned in Washington State. That just sort of makes the hair on the back of your neck stand up when you hear that.
Doesn't it? It is just a sign of, unfortunately, the times we live in, that we know that there was a mall outside of Minneapolis, a week ago, where there was a random attack, and they do believe it was ISIS-inspired. They are not saying that about this attack at this point, although they have not said anything about a motive. But again, Steve, that is why it is so important, I think, that the FBI is feeling like they need to step forward and say that this does not appear to be symptom of some sort of larger attack on even more people. as Chopper 7 remains over the scene, and we wait to see those buses get going.
Henry, you're standing right there. All those police agencies are, for the most part, surrounding you. Give us a sense for what they are in store for, the amount of evidence, the amount of searching, the amount of examination and processing that they are going to have to do there at Cascade Mall in the coming hours.
This is a vast task, and I think the number of flashing lights that you can clearly make out behind me, and in fact that we can show you, speaks to that. You were just talking about the FBI a second ago. We had an FBI designated SWAT team out here that seemed to be patrolling the perimeter and on standby to do. In fact, let's go hard right here, and we can show you some of more of the search dog efforts going on, searching all of the vehicles. In fact, these are news vehicles that they're searching at this point. You can see them breaking off the search to more of the cars that were parked here. Anyway, the vast task that they have here includes checking and investigating and seeing if there are secondary attacks possible. The FBI saying that doesn't seem likely. What the motives for this were, there were 4 women who were victims in this attack, 3 killed in this attack. The 3 fatalities are all women. I asked the state troopers at their last briefing event about an hour and a half ago if this was a target against women. And he said he didn't know, and they really don't have any sort of idea as far as motive. So what you're hearing from the FBI certainly jives with what we're hearing from local law enforcement on the ground as they continue to investigate. But again, they don't have a motive. So just because the FBI says it has not or it does not believe a future attack is imminent, we're not hearing anything about what the motive was for the attack in the first place. So really a lack of information that could speak to what happens moving forward and what this shooter was thinking.
All right, Henry, thank you for helping break that down for us. Continue to get all the information you can from law enforcement there on the ground. We'll continue to watch for those dogs as they sniff. Generally, we expect that that's sniffing for explosive devices, some sort of powder of some kind, black powder of some kind involved in explosives, perhaps ammunition. But Henry will stay on top of that for us, as well as we have Gary Horker, who is standing by waiting for if in fact they will allow us to join in some of those receptions by friends and family of those coming from the mall. Hasn't happened yet, but this is the person, and we can't show this picture to you enough. This is the suspect.
And we want to tell you a little bit of background behind the image as well. This was actually taken from surveillance cameras within the mall. We bring that up specifically because Henry kind of alluded to the tap dance that authorities have to perform when they're looking into this sort of investigation, between releasing information that will help them identify the suspect and keeping some cards close to their vest in order, not to give out too much information. The way that they were able to figure out that this is the guy and say unequivocally this is the shooter is because presumably they saw it happen on the surveillance video. They came out and said, without a doubt, this is the man that we're looking for. Whether they have any more inclination on a motive right now is a little gray area. State Patrol has been terrific in giving us new information, but boy, we're talking about countless agencies that are all involved here as they're having to coordinate this manhunt for this shooter who opened fire and killed those 3 women, injured another man critically, and another woman has non-life-threatening injuries. It is quite a task ahead, and they are throwing everything at it, but it is a lot to sort out.
And not just the mall, not just the surrounding areas there, and we have been told that there have been many detours, many roads closed into and out of the mall area. And from the governor on down, citizens have been asked to stay away from the area. Don't be driving there to look around and see what's going on. But it wasn't just at the mall where this has all had an effect. Tonight's Lakewood at Burlington Edison football game was temporarily suspended, then called, and they were evacuating the stadium. We have not heard word back whether they reassembled to complete that game. One guesses that they did not, that they evacuated the stadium and told everyone to seek shelter, go to safety, not knowing where this shooter might be. The person who walked in, as we were just showing you his picture a moment ago, with a rifle and opened fire. Don't know if he walked out with the rifle, have had no confirmation of that from law enforcement, just that the likelihood is that that person walked out with all of the people who were scurrying for exits. And the first report was that a person, possible suspect, was seen exiting the mall and heading west toward Interstate 5. And as we said before, you continue across Interstate 5 and work your way out toward Chuckanut Drive and eventually out toward Puget Sound. Lots of open area there for anyone to move into. That's why the helicopters, that's why the side scan radar, that's why all the law enforcement that have spread out like spokes of a wheel and trying to locate this person.
Yeah, it has been 4 hours now about that they have been searching for the person, and at this point they seem relatively certain that he is not in that mall, but that's about the only place it seems that you can definitively